Okay, do we have any changes or amendments to the agenda as given?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so it's approved. Mr. Stefano?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Don Rosie has agreed to provide tonight's invocation.
I have?
I'm sorry. Sorry, misspoke.
I'll do it.
Good evening. Let us pray.
Cold.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity that we might come together. We thank you because you have blessed us with a bounty of wonderful weather and a wonderful crop this year for our farmers. And we ask that you would continue to bless us, bless our community, bless those public safety officials who watch out for us, guide them, protect them so that they can go back to their families safely. And we ask that you would be in our presence, in our midst in this meeting, that we would be able to provide information to our board that allows them to govern in keeping with good government and within your will. We ask these and all other blessings in your name we pray. Amen.
And at this time, I'll have the county administrators, we will wait.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just ready to roll.
Ready to roll. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have as our first presenter Ms. Mia Bailey, who is with Charter Spectrum. Ms. Bailey is assisting us. As you all know, we've been in the midst of a build-out for broadband throughout the county. Charter Spectrum is our partner in that and have done a fantastic job to this point. You may also recall that our other partner was Rural Band, Prince George Electric Co-op, who would have been serving a portion of the county but decided some months ago that they would not be able to move forward with that portion of the project. To their credit and our delight, Charter has stepped up and kind of taken up that role in addressing broadband expansion in those other rural areas of the county. And so we're glad that they are agreeable to do that. We're working with the state to get a few things finalized, but they're in the process of moving that project forward. And with that, I will not try to steal any more of Mia's thunder, but certainly thank her for being here on tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Mia Bailey. I'm Director of State Government Affairs for Charter Communications, probably better known to you by our brand of Spectrum. You've probably known my colleagues pretty well before me, Eric Collins and Mike Tank. They both retired in the last year, and so I had the pleasure of inheriting Virginia and Isle of Wight. I've spent some time in Richmond this past session and getting to know localities a little bit better, so I'm going to be leaning on each one of you to help me to get to know you a little bit better. So tonight, we're going to talk, we have happy news, thankfully. We're going to talk about Charter's impact nationally, our impact in the Commonwealth, and most importantly, our impact in the Isle of Wight.
And I apologize, Mia, I had your presentation.
Oh, okay.
I'll pull it up. You got it? All right. No, it's a PDF.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's why I was, okay.
So to move on to the next slide, I reckon I can just do this. Nope. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and start with the national impact. So I'm sure you're familiar, at Spectrum we provide video, mobile services, voice services, and high-speed internet. Nationally, we have 31 customers across 41 states. We have 95,000 employees and 1 million miles of infrastructure across the country. We've invested $47 billion in our infrastructure to make sure it's robust and it's reliable. And collectively, as employees, our goal is to provide a superior product and outstanding customer service. Oh, goodness, don't laugh at me with this. Okay. So in Virginia, we have 150 employees based here. We've got 89,000 customers across 51 communities here in the Commonwealth. We've made a $50 million investment here in the Commonwealth. We've got $8 million in taxes and fees that we paid last year, and through our Rural Construction Initiative, we have lit up 9,000 small businesses and homes. We've added them to our network, and 5,000 of that 9,000 are first-time Spectrum customers and internet folks. In the Isle of Wight, we have 19,374 new passings. So this is what you all been waiting for. It's our VATI project status update. We're so pleased to report that our initial obligation when we signed up in 2021 has been completely complete. We have 2,660 locations that are now activated with Spectrum service. We have put 309 miles of fiber into the Isle of Wight here. And we are extra thrilled to report that we've worked with DHCD and the Hampton Roads Planning District Committee to add another 425 additional locations that we'll be lighting up. And we'll have that built, we intend to, by the end of June, if there's not any permitting issues or any weather that will prevent us from doing so. But it's our goal to either meet or beat that expectation. Mr. Down, I'm not sure if you got the list of addresses from Joe. If you have not, I'll make sure you get them tomorrow.
Yeah, I have not gotten those yet. but,
Okay.
We've been looking forward to seeing that information so that we can answer citizen inquiries on what areas are going to be.
Absolutely. I'm sure you all like to know where we're going and who's going to be lit up. And so for the road, I told you it'd be short. I have a little bit more good news. Last month, Charter hosted a DHCD and the Hampton Roads Planning District Committee, and we just visited all of our build-out projects here in the Hampton Roads area. And, you know, we've got a lot of great feedback. I'm really proud of my company for that. We have either met our deadlines or beat our deadlines. We've lit up and done everything we said we would do. And as Mr. Robertson has mentioned, we're also taking on some additional work, some that other folks couldn't finish. So we're really, really pleased about that. And you'll see a couple pictures there from Windsor. So with that, my very short presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Board members?
Is the 425 additional locations, is that on top of the ones that you took over from rural
Yes.
broadband?
Yeah, so 425 new homes and businesses will receive our service.
And then I remember I was on a broadband committee when I was on Smithfield Town Council. I think Mr. Chairman Rosie was the leader of that committee, and of course Don led us as well, Robertson. But I recall back then, the way the VATI grant went, that there were partners, right? And that there were certain sections of the map that would be covered by different providers, and some of those sections were covered by, let's say, Starlink or whatever, and that they had a 10-year period to complete the work. Am I remembering that wrong?
So that wasn't necessarily VATI, but yes, there is a map where certain areas were given the opportunity to serve. That was basically a federal process that unfolded. Quite frankly, Starlink probably had a half dozen address points in the
Oh,
county.
it wasn't a lot.
No, it wasn't a lot at all. But just because of the nature of the way that Starlink works, you can pretty much get that from anywhere. But that's satellite service. What we've been focused on is fiber to the
Fiber.
home, which is state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line service in terms of what citizens can utilize, the reliability of it. It's not weather dependent. It really is a great service.
So is it safe to say that the VATI project is coming to completion?
Yes, the first phase of the VATI project is coming to completion that we signed up for in 2021. So we met all of our commitment for that, and we're adding these new additional passings. But Starlink can be good in some instances where we're not able to get there.
Right.
You know, when there's water surrounding a particular home, you know, satellite may be the only option and the best.
So what do you
option
see
for
from
them.
other communities who are looking, let's say, to redo their strategic plan? What kind of goals could we consider that we could complete in the next 5 years
Is, I'm not
regarding
understanding.
broadband for our citizens? I mean, what's left to do?
We always love to grow. So I don't know, we have to look into that a little bit more. It's kind of hard for me to answer that right now because we're concentrating on what we're doing right now. And then we can kind of go from there. We want to do what we're doing well.
But maybe add another 300 or 400 homes on fiber
Well,
a year or
I
something?
think there's probably a couple of things. One is, obviously, we would want to continue to work with Charter and partner with them. The fiber to the home customers are getting the best of the best. Those are the newer customers. So the customers who have been customers for quite some time still have coax. Not bad service, just not the top of the line. We still have areas like even in downtown Smithfield where coverage is a little bit spotty. So again, our objective on our end is to continue to work with Charter, continue to partner with them to go back and address some of those existing areas that may need either service upgrades or just need some attention. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say primarily with this money, we're getting to homes that don't have service.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, first and foremost, and then we'll backtrack, like Mr. Robinson said, and try to fortify those networks that may have older copper, over wire systems.
Thank you.
Yes,
I got a
ma'am?
question, Dawn. For example, Launch Point, we had said that another company that did surge was going to do Launch Point because of the proximity. So will Charter be able to,
That was part of the area that they have taken over as a result of the latest conversations and agreement with the state. So once I get the mapping, I can specifically determine which
okay.
homes, but that's one of the areas that was slated to be served by rural band. Yeah.
We should have that, Mr. Jefferson, by tomorrow.
okay,
Joe Prater, I think you guys know him really well. He had a doctor's appointment today, so he
Yeah.
wasn't able to get me those addresses, but we'll make sure you have them.
So during this project, obviously, we've seen maps and coverage areas, and it just has evolved over time. I don't recall, maybe early on saw some of the mapping that showed some of the, we'll call it the older infrastructure when it comes to internet. It sounds like to me there's not really a plan to upgrade that, because I know we have people that are, say, in the Carrollton area or in the DSDs that are talking about, their coverage or their service is not up to what they feel is par. And I can't argue whether it is or not. I'm not
Right.
technically savvy on that. But how do we, I guess to your point, how do we move forward on enhancing or improving that infrastructure for people that are already there? Because it seems to me that at least part of Carrollton, maybe Eagle Harbor, at one time was FiOS. It was one of the last part of FiOS that I think
Okay.
Verizon had offered, wasn't it?
So, yeah,
It was just and then they kind of shut it down after that, I thought.
it was FiOS Lite.
There you go.
They didn't have true FiOS.
Okay. It's good to know.
They didn't have fiber. They just didn't have the infrastructure to give them true FiOS. And so that was more rumor than reality.
Good to know.
The fiber that we're getting now is the first true fiber that we've had in Isle of Wight County. And as I noted, earlier, our intent is to continue to work with Charter and not just identify those areas, because we know where they are, but just to continue to work toward getting some of those existing areas up to par. The good news is that in serving the newer customers, they've upgraded a lot of the equipment within the system. I think even back at the head end, some of that equipment was
Right,
upgraded
that's-
as part of this process. So that benefits everybody. Again, it's just to continue to move forward, but obviously the emphasis and the priority was on serving folks with no service at all.
Of course, yeah, of
Right.
course.
We have to get those first, and that's the direction of the grant money.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know that a lot of times we get the phone calls because,
Of course.
we ask for these jobs, and as if we run the network, but you'll see a lot, there, people have a tendency, believe it or not, to complain a little bit, and particularly when their internet's down. And,
Oh, yeah.
up in the Newport area, it's seemingly a problem quite often.
Okay.
And I'm assuming their bills are not going down, that they're probably going up like most things in life. And I guess the question is, with this being basically becoming an infrastructure that's just necessary, kind of like power and water, is your company billed in? I mean, if I'm paying my bill regularly and it goes up over time, is there part of my bill that goes into improving and enhancing that infrastructure
Yes.
as your company? So it doesn't all fall back to the locality?
doesn't all fall back to locality, but it's helped us a lot to build out our infrastructure, having the help and the partnership with
Yeah,
the
to get it past
localities.
those residents, because it was explained to us that we had to well, we want to make sure we understood that just because you go buy a residence doesn't mean they're gonna use that service.
right.
And that was the chance that y'all were taking, and that's why the government kind of stepped
Yeah.
in. But when you're able to do analysis, I guess, in the Newport area and see the number of customers you have, y'all do build that into improving your infrastructure.
Yeah, we do, because the more passings that we have, the more folks, the more chance we have for them to take our service and adopt the service, just making it available to them. Now, adoption is another issue that we have on the other hand.
Right.
You may have service available to you, but you don't necessarily use it or take it. So, yeah, we are taking a chance. We build infrastructure out and pass many homes, and we hope that, there's a certain percentage that we need to make our financial goals, to make it make sense. And that's why this federal money and all the assistance we're receiving from localities like you has been really helpful to make that financial model work for us.
I guess the big thing is just we don't lose the fact that you've got people, as you mentioned, have been on the network for a while. They're not part of this initiative, if you will, and they are at times struggling with what is being provided to them. I mean, we have people that move from outside the area, they work from home, the whole gamut, particularly in the northern end of the county, not to leave out the southern end, but, yeah, we just want to make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle.
Okay. I'll take this back.
I think bringing this back to the strategic plan, to an understanding of, over the next 5 years, how do we, how do we shape the goals that are achievable, to establish measures of effectiveness, both to expand the rural area, unserviced areas, as well as make a more contemporary network within those areas. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're going to write down in the strategic plan. But having that shaped by the expert, I think, would be key to make it achievable.
Yeah, I'm thinking we have people in-house, like our construction team, and those that can forecast and work with you when you get to that point.
Okay.
And want to start talking about it, and we could perhaps partner to build those things out and fortify those networks.
We have a work retreat in October for the strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah, we have about a month until we need that.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
No pressure,
no pressure.
just saying.
Okay.
I think we can certainly identify some broad goals. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, again, continuing the partnership that we've developed, I think is important. Not to get technical, but for example, in some areas, as a part of this build-out, they may have anticipated 100 homes, and so there's a node in place that anticipates 100 homes. But if you all approve a subdivision for another 150 homes, that system is gonna be woefully inadequate because they didn't necessarily anticipate 250 homes, they anticipated 100. So we have to work with them and, make sure that they're aware of what the county's plans are so that they can have their infrastructure mirror our build-out.
Yeah, and your plans for engineering, because he's absolutely right. The nodes are only designed to hold a certain amount of load. That's why when folks say, the Spectrum truck was right there, and I know my neighbor has service, but I don't. It could be, it's the design of the plan, and it may not be able to withstand another customer to get the superior service, to your point, that other customers are getting. And we want to make sure the service is uniform, especially for our new build-outs.
Certainly you share the information of what projects are, as they're approved or even projected.
We do, but I think with the relationship that we forged over the last few years, there's even better information sharing, and we just want to continue that. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think collaboration is really key in all this. And not to go too granular, I won't say a last name, but Don knows who I'm talking about, but we've had a few situations like at River Run, and an individual has a box there, and I don't know if one of their team was there, but I think so, where you met with them, and they're looking at the box, and there's wires coming in from here, and there's wires coming in from here, but there's no hookup. And that particular individual is really upset. He doesn't understand. It's like they stopped, they left, and never came back. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Actually, I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to talk to you offline about that one, so we
Yeah,
can look into that.
yeah. But that was, his neighbors have it, the other neighbors have it, but he doesn't have it. And it was a rural band, I believe, that had it. And so if we can look into that and try to get service out there, it may be just as simple as a technician probably now with Charter, they could come out and hook things up for
Take a
them. It would be,
It's not the one in Walters, is it?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you said box, that's what threw me,
Well-
because that's literally just a situation where everybody, all the homes are served. It's almost like a donut hole.
Okay.
For whatever reason, this one house wasn't served and nobody can figure out
Okay.
why.
But the rest of the surrounding houses are served by Spectrum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
They
And does
think
Joe-
on the walkthrough,
okay.
somehow the house was missed. Joe, those guys, they're aware of it.
Okay.
I didn't address
Yeah.
information. But now it was a matter of going back to engineering and say, how do we serve this
This one, right.
one home? So-
Okay, are they working on it? I'm sure they are.
Uh,
They're
Not,
aware of it.
not that we
Believe
know
they-
of right now.
Okay.
Well,
But it's been
as
put
we-
forward.
there's an engineering part to this that
Right.
we don't necessarily see.
That's true.
So that,
Let me look into
so,
it.
yeah. But I
Okay.
can provide you that
I
direct
appreciate it.
That's
information.
very good. But we do appreciate what you've done. We appreciate the fact that, you took over for Rural Band and what you're bringing to the table. I do think it is significant to get with our committee on the strategic plan and what you see, but also where they see growth and development. So it helps collaboratory sense that all of you are working together, so.
Sure.
If I may, before broadband became a hot topic, not many years ago, one of the things that this board, people had concerns about was cable TV and franchising, et cetera. As I recall, please correct me, but when this program started with the federal money, local money matches, et cetera, wasn't the table pretty much open to any vendor that wanted to or could sit at the table and, right, I mean, it was open, it
Bid on
wasn't
the
like.
process?
Yes.
Yes, it was open to other providers. We all bid.
Right.
And I think I remember that other provider that didn't finish actually challenged our applications, that we had actually bid on that area first. They challenged us, they won, and they couldn't build, and we're back again, so.
And if anybody had any questions about that, that's public record. They could easily look into it
Yes.
because people have a tendency, believe it or not, that, they're in cahoots with this and nobody else got a chance, and we know that's not the case. But I just thought it was a perfect opportunity to kind of just touch on that, and that information's there if somebody wanted to look into it to see how it was vetted, I guess is the best word.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people also think that serving rural communities is it's an easy prospect. It is very difficult. And so we are really thrilled at our partnership. I've told you all this before, but our project is leap years ahead of any other project that started at the same time that we did. So we have kind of become that example that the state holds up as a successful project, so.
That's good to know.
Thank you for mentioning that, I appreciate that.
Okay. No other
Anything else?
questions? Thank you, Mia, and
All
appreciate the
right.
report.
Thank you. I'm going to leave some cards with Mr.
Yes.
Robinson. You want to keep in touch with me? Thank you. And I'll see you guys soon.
All right, be safe.
Hampton Roads.
Mr. Chairman, the next presentation we'll have is the Hampton Roads Alliance. You all have expressed interest in knowing what some of the opportunities are as it relates to the defense industry and how we fit into that world. And that's something that they've been keenly focused on, and so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Good evening, Supervisors, and thank you so much for having me. I'm Steve Harrison. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Hampton Roads Alliance, and I'd want to just walk you briefly through just a reminder of who the Alliance is, sort of what our goals are, and the results that we have seen, and then talk to you about our Hampton Roads Playbook, which is the document that we are unveiling officially on October 29th, and we would love to have all of you there. Hopefully you received the invitation. If not, we'll make sure it gets to you. But that really is to sort of align our region around one unified economic development strategy, focusing on building on the core strengths of this economy. And then to also touch on the EVRIFA, Eastern Virginia Regional Industrial Facility Authority, and your role in it as a leader in it, and sort of the opportunities that I think that brings with it. So just a reminder, the Alliance is a public-private partnership. We represent 15 communities, so we represent Isle of Wight, and then out the furthest west obviously being Southampton, and we go up north to New Kent County. What we do is essentially serve as a single point of contact to assist companies that are considering locating here in Hampton Roads or working with companies that are considering expanding here. And that's a partnership in lockstep with Christy and her team and the other teams across the community. And so the focus areas that we primarily sort of operate in are business attraction, business retention and expansion, business intelligence. We try to be a source of data about the Hampton Roads ecosystem. There are so many questions that we get from primarily companies that are looking at moving to Hampton Roads that historically we really hadn't sort of turned around and given all that information to the communities. And so that's an offering that I would say is another leg of the stool of what we do. And then the fourth being real estate solutions, which EV-RIF is a big part of that. The number one reason Virginia loses projects is because we don't have ready sites. And so the Alliance saw that as a critical need to get involved and work alongside the localities to advertise the sites that are ready and then to work and find funding and a capital stack to get additional sites on the market. The main goals of the Alliance are really threefold. So we want to build a world-class regional economic development ecosystem. Economic development, I think, historically has been sort of you cast a wide net and hope you catch something. A little bit of you're a mile wide and an inch deep. And what we've tried to do instead is to really understand the local economy and the primary industries that are helping us to grow, and then to attract people from within those ecosystems. And a component of that too is just investing in sites, investing in talent. Talent recruitment, talent retention is critical, and so we work really closely with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. They're sort of the flip side of the coin of what we do, because you can't attract and retain companies if there isn't the appropriate workforce here to work alongside them. And then to strengthen our region's resiliency. And by that, we really mean just ensuring that we have the right energy resources to power all of these various industries, not only today, but in the future, when we're going to see exponential increase in need because of all these data centers and AI and all the energy that those companies will require as they move into this part of Virginia. So our key industries that I'll go into a little bit more, these top four, which I call DEAL, so defense, energy, aerospace, and logistics. That's sort of the heart of Hampton Roads and where a lot of the momentum is going. But then these core sectors that we also have to build and strengthen include, and I think all of these are really represented in Isle of Wight, but advanced manufacturing, business services, food and beverage processing, of course, and information technology. And so the results of this sort of new, deeper dive into industry really has been working. So year to date, we've had 14 announcements, almost 2,000 jobs announced, and nearly $400 million in capital expenditures. But just sort of taking that into a broader perspective, the change really started in 2019, and the results I think do speak for themselves. And so if you see from 2020 to 2024, we quadrupled the capital investment that we were able to announce versus the previous 10 years. And the jobs are similar. So in that 5-year period, we've already announced more jobs than we had announced in the previous 10. So we think that this strategy is working, and 2025 year to date, the results are keeping with that trajectory. So we're very excited about that. And so that takes us to the Hampton Roads playbook and sort of where do we go from here? And this is sort of capitalizing on the post-COVID economy, which is something that we saw historic shifts in not only sort of the American economic independence, but also looking sort of at the world. And so these various global tensions that we've seen have been aligned with this rapid technological innovation and AI, which brings with it increased energy needs. I think the COVID pandemic changed the way that the world worked, and so it has changed a lot of economic development with it. And then the federal changes that we're seeing, and federal funding that comes to and from Hampton Roads is something that we have to align with changing administration requirements and needs. And really what that leads to is that America in a post-COVID world has to remilitarize for all of these various global tensions. We are reshoring because I think we saw during COVID that not having certain parts of the supply chain here in the United States was a critical missed opportunity, and then re-energizing it and really looking at an all of the above energy strategy. So it's not just, you know, you hear a lot about offshore wind and the work that we're doing in that section of the energy ecosystem, but it's not just offshore wind. It's relying on traditional forms of energy, looking at nuclear, all of the above to get us to where we need to be. And building on all of that is basically looking at what is Hampton Roads at its core. And I think if you ask people sort of what is Hampton Roads best known for, of course, the quality of life, the tourism, and all those things, but it's also the military and the outsized military presence. So we call ourselves America's military metro. So there's 19 military installations here, 150,000 active duty reserve and military personnel and civilian personnel. And so that brings with it unprecedented federal spending. And this is something that really hadn't been looked at from a regional perspective until fairly recently. And so we've engaged a guy named Bruce Katz, who's an urban economist out of Drexel University, used to be with the Brookings Institute. And what he basically said in looking at the sort of economic fundamentals of Hampton Roads was you punch way above your weight in one area in particular, and that is DoD spending, which I think, of course, we all sort of intuitively know that, but looking at it, you know, on a chart, if you see on the right-hand side, we are the 37th largest metro, but we're 5th largest for DoD spending. And I think that on a given year, we could end up a little bit higher than that. You see some contracts that kind of give outsized representation to like a Dallas. But Washington, New York, Boston, San Diego, we're not traditionally in those conversations, but we are in this sector of the economy. And it's not all Navy spending. I think a lot of us sort of assume most of it's going to be Navy. It's about 53% of it's from the Navy, and it is spread throughout the region. I think when I first saw that number, I assumed a lot of it probably was in Norfolk. But it's actually the majority of the spending, or the plurality of the spending, is in Virginia Beach. There's a lot in Newport News, of course, with Huntington Ingalls, and a lot in Norfolk, but it is spread throughout the region. But these other industries, sort of the other part of the deal, we're seeing tremendous momentum, and we think there's opportunities to build here too. So if you look at energy, of course, the Dominion Energy offshore wind project is a huge investment, and the maritime workforce that we have here is really second to none. So as that industry grows and changes, I think the ability to attract companies that are in that space, like LS Greenlink that you saw go to Chesapeake, and they're a subsea cable manufacturer, and they have a 7-year backlog. So they've said, you know, even if offshore wind slows down, they have 7 years of customers waiting. So I think that those types of projects, we've already sort of landed that plane, if you will. Those companies know that this is the right workforce. And so there's future projects in that pipeline as well. Aerospace, I think the presence of NASA Langley, as well as these various military installations, has brought with it huge interest in this aerospace community. And you see so much going on right now, in particular with uncrewed systems, advanced air mobility, and what they call beyond visual line of sight. And so at NASA Langley, they are actually sort of modeling out the ability to have 5,000 Uber air taxis in New York City. And they're doing so much R&D and partnering with companies to do it. And so what we want to do is work more closely with assets like that, like NASA Langley and NASA Wallops, even though it's not in this region, and say, you know, get these companies to invest here, to set up a shop here and do some of that innovation in Hampton Roads. And then, of course, logistics. 1 in 10 jobs in Virginia are tied to the Port of Virginia. It's a tremendous economic impact. It's going to continue to get stronger and stronger. It's the most automated port in North America. So pretty much, you know, every year we're seeing record volumes and record investment. So they have a $1.4 billion to expand, $50 million to accommodate these ultra-large vessels that are coming from Asia, and then they've put $220 million into PMT to look at, or Portsmouth Marine Terminal, to look at staging offshore wind turbines. So there's a lot of momentum in these sectors, and we think that it sort of spreads itself out throughout the region as well. And one of the things that makes Hampton Roads unique is we are the biggest metro area in the country that is not concentrated around one city. So the 36 metros that are above us all have greater Richmond, greater Dallas, greater New York, but we are Hampton Roads because we're not a sort of hub and spoke model. And what that leads to is what Bruce Katz referred to as a constellation of innovation, that there are hubs of activity, that they're just spread throughout the region. And so the magic in it is really going to be making sure that these various entities and groups are kind of collaborating. So on the peninsula, whether it be NASA Langley, Jefferson Lab, Virginia Tech's Tech Center, William and Mary, Hampton University, Christopher Newport, there's a ton of research going on that we want to capitalize on and spread throughout the region and ensure that that stuff stays here. Here in the sort of western part of the south side, manufacturing and transportation is our bread and butter and allows for huge investment to come, as we've seen time and time again, and we want to encourage that as well. Of course, that's heavily supported by port and logistics. But then, the maritime and defense hub of the sort of waterside communities is critically important to being able to grow any of these industries. And then there's a lot of innovation taking place in Virginia Beach and Norfolk at ODU. There's a company called Drone Up there that actually has a contract with Walmart to do the drone deliveries. And so we want companies and innovators like that to invest in Hampton Roads and sort of realize what is all around them as well. And so that's a component of this, is really just sort of educating all of us collectively on what this constellation of innovation is. And so with that, instead of it being sort of an economic development strategy that's going to sit on a shelf, as so many do, unfortunately, this is a project-driven economic development strategy. And so we have 6 initial projects. It's actually going to, I think, be 7. But projects that have a definitive timeline, they have capital investment associated with them, they will create jobs. And so it's sort of not waiting for an economic development win to come to you. It's we're going to create some. And so within those, they have to fall into this matrix. So they have to be in the deal ecosystem of defense, energy, aerospace, and logistics, and they need to work to support sort of these catalysts of the industries. And those are the workforce, tech, innovation, industrial infrastructure, and a lot of that is sites. And so at EV-RIFA, we really view as the home of that component of this whole system. And then the supply chain, understanding the supply chain of our major employers. And so, for instance, we work really closely with Huntington Ingalls, and they have suppliers all across the United States that they would like to see move closer because it just logistically makes it easier for them. And so we're trying to get deeper into supply chains of these major employers and help them find additional options, but also get additional investment into the region. And that kind of takes us to the value chain or the supply chain as a whole, which traditionally Hampton Roads has been at the end of the supply chain. So we build big things, we build tough tech, so final assembly and outfitting, all of those things are really where Hampton Roads shines, but we want to expand our reach in the value chain into innovation, design, and manufacturing. A lot of that is high-skilled, high-paid work that we would like to see as a component of the overall ecosystem here. So we not only want to build the nuclear aircraft carriers, we want the people designing them and coming up with the next generation to be here as well. And the official strategic projects that we're beginning with are these 6. But it is something that will continually evolve and add to it. So the first is a Defense Efficiency and Production Center, which that's in collaboration with Huntington Ingalls. It's really addressing welding is going to be I think the main crux of it is how do we increase production, slow workforce shortages by training and bringing more welders online, and then helping them deal with the shrinking supplier network. An AUKUS Center of Excellence. So AUKUS is Australia, UK, US, a trilateral agreement between our 3 communities or 3 countries to strengthen our collective defense ecosystem. We will teach Australia how to sort of help defend the Indo-Pacific. They're going to buy nuclear subs and various items from us, but they're also going to invest quite a bit of money into this region in particular as they learn from companies like Huntington Ingalls. And so we're going to have an AUKUS Center of Excellence. The American Center of Excellence will be here in Hampton Roads. There'll be a British one in Sheffield, England, and an Australian one in Adelaide, Australia. And then there'll be summits at those three on an annual basis. So right now we're looking at and working with William and Mary, which William and Mary has really strong relationships, of course, in the UK, but also in Adelaide, Australia. And so having them sort of serve as a convener. Nexus is something that has been discussed among the sort of aviation community for several years, but we're converting it into an official project, which the idea of this is basically creating an innovation hub or sort of a launch pad to accelerate autonomous system development, whether that's air, land, sea, through testing, commercialization, workforce training. We've looked at this beyond visual line of sight sort of drone test lab, and we'd like to see that locate somewhere in Hampton Roads. Because this technology is coming, and so it'll either be developed in Hampton Roads or we'll end up using it, later down the road, and we'd like it to start here. The Ambassador Corps is essentially leveraging the incredible assets that we have in the veteran population. So the veteran population here, as you know, is extremely strong, and many of these veterans have professional networks and expertise that I think has gone untapped in the economic development community. And so Admiral Chip Rock is going to basically convene a group of local leaders who are going to discuss all of these opportunities and ways that they can leverage their background, their expertise, their peer group to encourage investment in Hampton Roads. We're working with 757 CoLab, which is the incubator for startups, and they are doing a defense technology accelerator and really just looking to find the future supply chain for all of these mega defense contractors. And then we're working with the Hampton Roads Workforce Council on what they call the Regional Maritime Training System, which is focused on developing a qualified workforce to ensure that our maritime industrial base continues to be strong. And the demand for that is significant, and we've seen some major prospects in the last few years that would require 5,000-10,000 jobs in that space, and they come here because they know we have that system and that workforce, but we have to train additional people so that it's not cannibalizing existing companies. And so we would love to have you there. As I mentioned, it's Wednesday, October 29th, and we'll make sure that this is in your packet, but that is a QR code to register for the event as well. And then just to conclude on what is a terrible acronym, but a really impactful organization of EV-RIFA. And it is a Regional Industrial Facility Authority, which that is a political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia, so it's a government body. And it's a misnomer as well because it does not have to be an industrial development. So it can be hospitality, it could be infrastructure, it could be affordable housing. And so we're trying to work alongside the member communities to determine sort of what are the initial priorities, which I think initially it was viewed as co-investing in projects and then sharing in the revenue associated with those wins, which I think that's the meat of it. But are there additional opportunities for EV-RIFA and that board to play a role in site development, even if EV-RIFA doesn't own the site? And that could be getting brownfields grants, for instance, that then any of the individual communities could pull down and utilize for their own needs. So the top priority currently with these 12 members is the Kings Creek Commerce Center, and this is in York County. We'd love to see an EV-RIFA project in every community at some point, but this was surplus state property. It was a Navy fuel depot, and it has been converted into a Tier 4 certified site by the EV-RIFA. The vast majority of it was leased to Dominion for a solar farm, but we have about 183 acres left that we are promoting for industrial development. You all are a member of that project, and I think it has been a really strong project and attracted a lot of additional interest. So when we started with these 6 members, now there's 12 members of EV-RIFA, and so we're anticipating additional opportunities for investment here in the near future. And just to sort of end on where we think Isle of Wight, and obviously we look to you for sort of leadership on this, but where Isle of Wight is potentially really poised to excel in this Hampton Roads playbook. If you look at the deal, the available buildings and developments that you all have here, is extremely important, the Tidewater Logistics Center among them, in allowing companies to have space to move to Hampton Roads. The energy plan that you all developed as well was a leader. I think you were perhaps the first, and you might still be the only in Hampton Roads that has a large-scale sort of energy plan to understand the growing needs of your community. And so I think that helps as we look at that space. The workforce too, we've seen it time and time again with these various prospects that have chosen Isle of Wight, the large logistics workforce, but there's also a large veteran population out here. And so I think for the Ambassador Corps, that is a really interesting role. And then infrastructure and sites are gonna be the deal maker or the deal breaker for any of this, because you have to have a site for these companies to go. And you all have plentiful site opportunities and existing buildings. And so we want to make sure that we pair the right prospects with Christy and her team, and all of you with the right location here in Isle of Wight. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but would love to see you on October 29th. And we really want it to be a community plan, so we welcome feedback, additional ideas, things that you say, hey, I would tweak that. Because we view it as an evolving document with projects that will come, be completed, and then new ones will follow behind them.
Members?
So, the deal and the things that you presented this evening, is that pretty much high level of the plan that'll be unveiled on the 29th, or are there details that I'm gonna miss if I can't make it?
There'll be more details, but like it'll be something that then it will all be sent out to you. So if you can't make it, we can definitely make sure that you get all the information, but that is the high level. There will be a panel of experts talking about why this makes sense. So it's Admiral Chip Rock, Stephen Edwards from the Port of Virginia, the NASA Langley Interim Executive Director, and Bill Murray from Dominion to talk about sort of their facets of deal. And then the 6 project leads will also all speak about the details of those projects and what it looks like sort of in reality.
And I must admit, although I was assigned before Supervisor DeStefano to the Alliance and EV-RIFA, how are you all funded?
The Alliance?
I should know that, but I don't.
So the Alliance is funded by locality, so the 15 communities invest, it's a per capita rate, so it's $1.15 per capita. And then a little bit over half of our funding comes from private sector investment. And so those are at varying tiers. So we have companies like Town Bank and Centera, Huntington Ingalls are the biggest, but then it goes down to companies that will give us $5,000 a year. So we're a 501c3. So, and then EV-RIFA is a government body that we agreed to manage because we felt like it just made sense given what we do. So we do that for no cost, but it is funded by just small, I think it's $2,000 a year for every member community under a certain size. And then you would just buy into any individual project. Yeah.
And how do we get a project to qualify for EV-RIFA status?
So it would really just be if there is one that you want to put in, you can really just bring it and then we'll just solicit the investment from the other communities. And so I think it would just be defining what that project looks like. Every project can be different. You can have a different contract for any individual project. So for instance, this project in York County, they set it up so that all of the revenues and things will be split between the 6 in perpetuity. We've had a couple of communities that said, hey, could I sunset that? Because I'd like to, in 25 or 30 years, potentially recapture all of it. And so then it's really just sort of structuring a deal like that and then determining which other communities would want to invest. But I think there is a hunger for another project. So would love to see it. And we have talked to Christy, and so it'll really be, I think, if anything kind of comes up, it can be a privately owned site. Traditionally, it's been publicly owned sites across Virginia, but it can be privately owned. It has not been done in Virginia yet, but we would love to be the first to do that. So,
Yeah, thank you very much.
I want to add some emphasis to one of the parts that I happen to be familiar with, specifically to the Navy portion. I know you said that was 50% of the spending locally. But if you go back and look at the National Defense Industrial Strategy, and also quotes recently by Admiral Rucker, Currently, we're producing as a nation, 1.3 fast attack submarines with the intention to go up to 2 per year. That's Cold War levels. And if you look at during the Cold War times, there was about 19,000 defense-based manufacturers. Currently, there's 5,000. And so we cannot reach that capacity. So I think there's a huge market that, even though it's 50% currently, most likely a huge market that's coming in that area. And in my opinion, we're primed for that in this county.
I completely agree, and from what I understand from Huntington Ingalls and others, for every one submarine that the United States completes, China's building 17. So it is sort of a clarion call that we have to reinvest in defense in ways that we have not.
It's true. They did have one sink at the pier, though.
Yes, that's true.
Who did,
But-
China?
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a wake-up call, I think, that we've got to, we hadn't had to do that in, the post-90s environment, but I think development of the defense ecosystem is critical.
Right.
Any other comments? No. Certainly is a lot of opportunity, and the idea of, instead of us always competing with our nearby sister cities and so on, it's more of a drive toward, and perhaps that's the word of the night, collaboration, that is working together instead of working against one another. The fact that we're jumping in together on EV RIFA and some other projects, has huge opportunity for us. Certainly, we're a bedroom county to all that's going on. We want to manage growth. We want to manage growth well. So we want the right project in the right place. But really look forward to everything that continues to come forward out of this. Love a copy of this presentation if it's possible. And do you have a
absolutely.
card for us?
I do. I will leave those.
Thank you.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, if you all would indulge, I'm going to ask Christie to come up. Obviously, this is, sort of the regional approach, but we do want to at least spend a couple of minutes talking about some of the local assets that we have. Thank you very much.
So we can get Christie to tell us the projects that she's anchored out of that, and we're ready to start on.
Well, we're going to talk about the assets.
Good evening. So I just have put together some really high-level
Thank you.
strategy information to kind of get us started in this conversation if we are going to really have a true defense strategy and make it one of our target industries. So some of the things that Steve mentioned, we are in a military metro. Our proximity to Newport News Shipbuilding makes us an ideal candidate for some of these folks in their supply chain that could locate in the county. And what we really want to do is leverage this partnership that we have with the Alliance, because they're the ones that are creating these relationships with the military and defense industry contacts, and that's kind of our in. This industry is not your typical lead that you would get from a site selection consultant or a broker or developer. This is really a niche market, and it's more of connections and relationships within the industry itself that lead these companies to come to us. So one of the things that the Alliance can also help us do is give Isle of Wight exposure. When they do bring the Australian companies over to visit, or any other defense-related companies to visit the region, that's giving Isle of Wight exposure. So these are all things that can help us when there's a lead and there's a need for someone to come to Isle of Wight, need space. He's also mentioned workforce. We have a strong veteran population. About 16% of the population is veteran population, and a lot of those folks are, still wanting to work after their military career. And we also have a number of high-quality port-centric industrial buildings and some future sites that are available for these opportunities. So we just need to take a deeper dive into this whole industry and come up with a marketing plan for how we would approach this industry to start generating those leads. But a lot of the work that we're going to be doing is in lockstep with the Alliance. And I didn't know if I put together some slides just to highlight, the buildings that we have immediately available for 60 Commerce Center. It's going to be done any day now. They'll be getting their CO.
Yeah, I think just at least mention that we are well positioned from the standpoint of having assets on the ground, ready to go, or at least much farther along than many communities. I think puts us in a really good place. When you couple that with what Christy was just talking about, partnering with the Alliance, creating those networking opportunities, I think we could be in a really good place in a fairly short period of time to really go after some of these opportunities.
And just to remind you, we also have the former Keurig facility, which you may have heard previously that it was under contract and available for lease. However, that deal fell through, so it's back on the market for sale. And then Steve also mentioned Tidewater Logistics Center. The 4 buildings that are planned for that property are really well positioned for defense industry, even as maybe some sort of hub of companies. And then to some extent, maybe even the Virginia Coal Dock 258, which was previously known as X-Dock. They've had several different names. Every time they come out with a revised marketing brochure, they have renamed the facility. But I have heard that there are certain components of the shipbuilding industry that need cold storage. Maybe Supervisor DeStefano could maybe have some insight into that. But that's something that I heard from the developer that maybe even there are components in that industry that could require cold storage. So we'll have that building available as well.
Is that under contract or just available?
It's available. They're looking for tenants. And they'll take one tenant for the entire building. They'll divide it into, for 2 tenants. But they'll subdivide as low as 20,000 square feet. And then just a reminder about the airport, we have the industrial acreage adjacent there that could provide some opportunities in the unmanned, uncrewed.
Yeah, and so when you start to talk about
arena.
potential EV RIFA projects, that's a possibility. Maybe that site is something worth investigating. Developing a regional partnership. You've got the asset of the airport, but if you were able to couple that with some of the newer technology that's coming out, I think it would position us well to move into that field.
And this could be a candidate for EV RIFA. Because by default, you'd have the city of Franklin
And Isle of Wight.
and Isle of Wight as the 2 partners that are necessary for an EV RIFA project.
Do we have to sell the property to them, or they just manage the marketing of it?
They own
City of Franklin
Yeah.
owns,
Yeah.
City of Franklin owns the property, and it's been a collaborative marketing effort.
It was given to them by the FAA, I believe.
No, I mean, will the Alliance own it? I can't remember how EV RIFA works. Well, let's say we turn it over to an EV RIFA project.
It would depend on the deal. The EV RIFA would likely own it. The city of Franklin would probably sell it to the EV RIFA, but then could maintain a certain percentage of the revenues that they would want in
Yeah.
perpetuity. But we could structure it. It could be something where they still own majorities, but sort of solicit additional investment for
I believe we have agreement where there's revenue sharing. I'm not gonna say it out loud, but I know there was opportunities and it could be sold to industry, but it has to meet certain requirements and it has to be at an appraised value. But it's certainly reasonable in many ways. I've been talking with the mayor and some of the economic development folks on some of that. Been out there even more recently, and there's some really great potential there. Maybe something that we need to look together with you guys and talk about more specifically and be a little more aggressive about that.
So Franklin owns it, but it's in Isle of White County.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Right, so if RIPA developed pieces of it, then the tax revenue would come back here.
Yep.
With a rev share.
Yeah.
That in fact is,
Yeah, but it is in Isle of Wight, so yes.
right.
But we would have to share with Franklin, right?
So that property is in a revenue sharing area, so whatever goes in there, if it produces revenue, a portion of that would go to the city of Franklin.
Right.
I would not want that to hinder our, opportunities or our thoughts about collaboration, because,
We can get creative with that maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, Franklin needs money too.
absolutely. I think they would be very happy for us to help do something with that.
And they
project.
I have mentioned this to my counterpart in Franklin, Southampton, and they are definitely interested in exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so how do we
EV
get that
option.
started?
Well, we've been talking.
Yeah.
Talk to the
So, obviously, we want to grab the Alliance as another partner and participant in that. Chairman has reached out, I've reached out to Franklin, Christie's reached out. They, I think, are very much wanting to have some dialogue with us. They've got some issues that they've got to work out on their end. But yeah, I think there's very much a willingness to come to the table and have those conversations.
Yeah, I just feel like the Alliance is the firepower we need, you know what I mean? Like, no offense to Christy and her department, like, I think they do a great job, but it seems like they're marketing on a world stage in 4 very specific areas, deal areas, et cetera.
And that's exactly why we invest in the Alliance, so that we
Right.
get that reach.
Exactly.
And I think the door's more open now than it's been in a number of years, and so, we're trying to approach that and see what we can do there.
So do we need to put that on an action item agenda for a regular meeting, or?
I think it might be something that you might want to talk about at your strategic plan discussion in terms of how you would want to position yourselves for these opportunities.
Okay.
And then one last property that is a future development site, the Norfolk Southern property. It sits right in between Shirley T. Phase 2 and Phase 3. 1,700 acres, and they refer to it as a mega site. It is the second largest industrial site in the region. It has split zoning, so and it's, I think, about 40 different parcels. Some of them are general industrial zone, and some of them are rural zone. And they are targeting manufacturing, advanced manufacturing and data center uses. So this is something we've been working closely with Norfolk Southern for a couple of years now on how they can increase their level of site readiness.
And who owns that? Norfolk
Norfolk
Southern?
Southern,
And the railroad goes through the front part?
yes.
And
The
is that
rail-
460 on?
The rail line is here. This is Safeco right here. The Keurig building is here. 460 is up here. And Tyler Drive splits the property.
Oh.
Yep.
So what's the yellow lines towards the top?
I think that's power lines.
This is 500 kV Dominion Power transmission lines.
What's the water situation there?
You would have to connect water to the property. Do not currently have public utilities.
And it's served currently by the Windsor,
It would be.
the 100,000 gallons a
It would be
day?
served. So update on that, we have recently found an amendment to the agreement that gave us the 100,000. So we now have 224,400 gallons per day allotted from Windsor.
Would you have access to propane or gas at that site?
Would have access to gas.
Gas.
Yes, sir.
But if they needed a lot of water, like, I'm not advocating for a data center, but don't they require a lot of water?
Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
There's newer technology that data centers don't need the volumes of water that some have needed in the past.
And the great thing
Depends on the
about
technology.
data centers is you're not bringing in 1 million trucks and all that. You actually have a low population of employees,
Right,
but significant income resource, correct?
right.
I don't believe data centers' water has to be potable either. It could be from a large body source of water.
We did secure some water, raw water, didn't we, from the agreement several years back? Remember the water that was kind of sitting there on the table that?
Some of the Gaston pipeline?
Yeah, WTWA didn't really put their hands on, that we said we wouldn't mind having, do you remember where we are on that?
I don't think we have that anymore. I think we, I can't remember what the specific deal was with that, but there was a time frame that we had to act on that, and it was, I can't remember what the negotiation was, but I don't think we own. Because it was
Not
like 1
anymore.
million gallons a day,
Yeah, raw water.
yeah.
What's the first largest industrial site in Hampton Roads?
The Williams property in Chesapeake, it's 4,000 acres. Is that right? That's right, 4,000?
And is all of this like that particular species of pine tree that makes it a wetland?
Blah.
This site does have a significant amount of wetlands that would need to be mitigated, and that's one of the challenges.
Is that
Norfolk
everything in
Southern
green?
has right
Is the
now.
green wetlands
Mhm.
on that map?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's about 365 acres that they'd have to mitigate.
I was about
To be able to
There's
develop.
still a lot of usable.
There's still a lot of usable. You can kind of build around it.
So is it any residential around this property?
There's some, but not, it's scattered, not individual homes, not neighborhoods.
And are the largest parcels, the lightest parcels, are those active farms?
Yes, they do have farm leases and hunting lease on the property.
Hunting lease.
Mhm.
In addition to these properties that we discussed, where would we find a list of properties that the county owns as far as commercial properties? A number of years ago, under a subsequent board probably, there was a lot of it put up for sale, et cetera. Of course, the signs have gone away, and I know not all of it was signed. Could you provide us with that list of commercial properties that would not be incorporated in, say, the Shirley T. Holland and that kind of stuff? It may not be very long. I don't remember how long it was.
I think it was just a handful of properties. I remember when those were,
It's ones like at Queens Anne's Court,
Mhm.
that commercial piece there, and some other ones.
I have
It just
that.
would be nice, I think, for the board's information. And that being said, if our constituents or somebody in the county were looking for property and we would have it for sale, I mean, I know it's public information, but would they have to request what properties we have out there that might be available?
Well, periodically, we get offers to purchase property that the county owns, so it's, I mean, obviously,
It's out
like
there
I said, it's
somewhere.
public information. You can go online and find it, but periodically, we do get requests.
So a lot of times they probably see the property, they do a little bit of search, find out it comes back to the county.
Exactly.
But if you don't.
Not even just commercial, sorry to interrupt, but when I was trying to look for a site, I was interested in sponsoring a habitat build and found out that we own like 7 different parcels in Ivor or something, right?
Yeah, but they
They're not
come with
commercial, they're
strings.
residential.
But
We can't sell those for residential.
that was some of the FEMA properties from flooding.
Yeah, you can't put an insurable structure on any of those.
If you're doing a
properties.
habitat or something like that.
No, no
Apparently not.
insurable
I
structures
tried.
whatsoever.
They
Put a
were able to let
picnic
you put a
table
free
out.
Still a
house
couple
on it.
turtles out there and roll with it.
We have the same situation. Same situation down off, near the Walters, Convenience Center down below that because
Some
it
in
flooded
Rushmore.
out.
They're all over.
A good suggestion, Joel.
Can you get us that list, even though it might be small?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I meant to do this on the front end and got ahead of myself, but I need to backtrack. I'm going to ask Mr. Robert Floyd if he would come up to the podium. We were very fortunate in being able to recruit and snag Robert. He is our new Director of Finance, and we are delighted to have him on board. He started Tuesday and has hit the ground running. And he comes to us from the city of Martinsville.
Oh, wow.
But he has a great deal of experience in local government. And like I said, we're really thrilled to have him on board. So I wanted to have him come here tonight just so you all could meet him. And I promised him I would not keep him tonight unless he wanted to stay here. But he's got a little bit of a commute tonight, but just glad to be able to make this introduction.
That's good stuff.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
There's an audit committee meeting Monday at 4.
I forewarned him.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Don?
With that, the next item, item C, unfortunately, we were advised on yesterday that the representative from Blue Line Solutions would not be here. He had a family medical emergency, and so he was not able to come. But if I could, maybe just for 30 seconds, hang on, Mike, just a second. We're coming to you. If I could, just for 30 seconds, because there is an underlying component to this. Obviously, when we think about Blue Line, we think about, what's happening throughout the region with them doing the enforcement by radar, and all of that. There is, based on a study that was done, there is some infrastructure that we need to address in Isle of Wight before we get too far down the path in that discussion. Good, bad, or indifferent, whether you pursue it or not, there's some things that we may need to visit as it relates to our school zones. So I'm going to ask Jamie if she would just come up, give you a 30-second spiel.
She usually goes at
on-
the end. She doesn't
Yeah, I'm
do it
trying
this
to-
early. She's not prepared. She was so not prepared. She was ready to do it at 10 o'clock.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Oliver, Transportation Director for Isle of Wight County. We did an evaluation with VDOT of each of the school zones in each of the schools in Isle of Wight County. I believe those reports were provided to you. And what VDOT Traffic Engineering did was take the most current standards for what is required in a school zone as far as speed limits, signage, pavement markings, all of those requirements, and applied them to our school zones and gave us a report on what is compliant, what is not compliant, what updates we would need to make. We then got with one of our consultants and got estimates on doing all of those updates, which included removing everything out there that's incorrect for the current standards and installing new technology, new pavement markings, et cetera, that would meet the standards. One of the reasons we have to look at this is because the school zones are not required. They're an option, and they're implemented based on the school board having a land use permit with VDOT. So the school board is actually responsible for maintaining all of the school zone signage. So for example, if it's flashing over a holiday, it's the school that's actually supposed to be maintaining, changing those. The technology is fairly out of date, and it's very challenging for the schools to manage what they have out there now. The estimates that we got for updating all of the school zones in the county is approximately $400,000 to $500,000. That's a fairly hefty bill for what feels like just replacing signage. We are partnering with VDOT right now to look at what they might be able to help us do, take off some of the things on that list and then come back and reevaluate what needs to be done. We think maybe 50% they can help us with, especially when it comes to just straight up removal of certain things and certain signage that's not related directly to the flashing lights and school zones, but just general traffic markings in the areas that the schools are in. They'll be able to help us with some of that. But until those things are implemented, the current school zones are not up to the current standard for us to try to enforce actual regulations against people related to the school zone itself. Now, if there's a posted speed limit, we can certainly still enforce that, et cetera. But trying to enforce any additional penalties directly related to being in a school zone could be problematic based on them not meeting the current standards.
What's the speed limit supposed to be, 25?
It is
Depends on
different depending on the school and depending on the current traffic at that location and the current speed limit at that location. Usually it's 25 or 35.
I would note, there's information actually in your agenda based on, that provides the recommendations based on the study that was done.
Correct. VDOT looked at each individual school site specifically, and so their recommendation tells us how to change each one of those sites individually to meet the requirement. And then we do also have a copy of the standards memo itself to help you understand what the expectation is.
So like Georgie D. Tyler, I guess the entrance used to be on 258, so they're recommending getting away from the school zone on the highway?
Correct. So the school zone that's currently on 258 would not be there, and it would need to be implemented on Court Street. Similar to Carrollton, the school zone does not belong out on Brewer's Neck. It would actually belong on Newtown Haven.
So why was Hardy School left off?
Hardy was left off because they actually did this type of evaluation when they did the new construction, and it's currently 2 standard. And we know that. So we didn't evaluate that one individually because that was part of the site planning process for the school.
So I just dive a little bit more in on the Brewer's Neck one. We had a discussion this morning. Most people that live, probably a lot of people that live in the Newport district or in that area are not aware that that school was there before the traffic light was there, and that's my understanding why it was there to begin with. I did not know, I felt ignorant not knowing that that was I thought it was a VDOT. Didn't know how it was paid for on the front side, but I thought VDOT maintained it, and that, of course, isn't the case. So I guess a couple things that just to reiterate or to address if it needs to be is I understand that that school zone, like you had said, on Brewer's Neck is recommended to go away and get relocated at best to Newtown Haven. And I know rightfully so, our parents are going to be concerned because I think second only to the James River Bridge, Brewer's Neck is becoming the next drag strip, if you will, and the speed through there is just incredible. As you know, the traffic's bad too. You've talked about it in our studies. I guess we can't reiterate enough that, I mean, I don't know, you said it was based on permit. So let's just say the school board was passionate about keeping Brewer's Neck. That may not even be an option, correct, Jamie?
Correct. So they do have permits for their existing infrastructure that we have found. So they can certainly stay, but any operational changes that they need to make, they're going to need to update to the standard.
So to update
So to update the actual sign infrastructure, they need to meet the new standard. To enforce anything related specifically to school zones, like I said, you can still enforce the speed limit, but you can't enforce an additional penalty because of the school zone if the school zone is not validated.
So if the schools have all kinds of money, decide they wanted to update the school zone on Brewer's Neck, they'd have to get probably another permit for the work, and it probably wouldn't be approved because VDOT would say, we've already determined it not necessary.
It doesn't meet the criteria, correct. They would have to update their permit, and their permit would have to match the study that was provided, which meets the criteria. Now, that does not mean that everything on Brewer's Neck related to the school goes away, and that doesn't mean that there's not an existing traffic conversation that needs to happen at that intersection regardless of the school. It's just a matter of whether the school is creating a direct traffic safety issue that needs to be addressed with the school zone. You don't have kids crossing Brewer's Neck. You don't necessarily have independent teen drivers at the Brewer's Neck intersection. You do have school buses. So again, we might also want to take a look at, possibly I've looked at that, and we should probably pull the plans to see what the length of that turn lane should be, for example, to make sure buses have plenty of room to get out of the way. I'm not sure when the last time that was looked at for those townhouses are. They have updated some of the school signage on Brewer's Neck already. I just saw it today, just coming towards that intersection to notify people that the school is there when you turn, but it's not a formal school zone for violations. So it's not a throw everything out, The school is still there, but it's not utilized that particular means and methods.
Jamie, the fees associated with violations within the school zone that are outside of the speed fees, does the school benefit from those, or who's the payee of those?
So my understanding is anything related to that would be in the Blue Line contract, and that's not something that we as a department are party to. That's between, at the moment, Blue Line and the sheriff's office. That would be an enforcement mechanism. That's not something that we know the details of. I haven't reviewed that contract in particular.
How about up to this point, outside of the Blue Line contract? I'm saying in the existing
I
school zones.
don't know that there's any independent fees.
Existing, right now, if you were charged with speeding in a school zone, it is just an enhanced penalty on a regular traffic ticket. So if a town officer wrote it, the bulk of the money goes to the town, the rest goes to the state. If a county officer writes it, we get the bulk of the money, and if a state trooper writes it, the state gets the money.
Okay. Having that, we've discussed now knowledgeable that the current signage is not up to regulation and those can't be enforced, is there any risk that previous violations within those zones add risk to us financially, or is that done?
No, that's,
It's not, and a lot of your school zones are speed limit specific. So again, you can still enforce the speed limit in that location. It's
Assume
just
that's
a
the
question.
majority of it.
Correct.
Okay.
So do we
right now,
have
because
to-
they're writing an officer is observing and writing a ticket based on a speed violation, and the code just says if you speed in a school zone, the fine is just different. And it's posted as a speed limit item. For the radar, this is a separate animal that provides for up to, and I think all the localities have gone to the up to value of $100, that if you get a ticket for running 11 over, you get a $100 civil penalty that doesn't carry any points.
Okay.
So it's a different animal.
I appreciate the clarification.
Do we have to make this $400,000 to $500,000 worth of changes, or we just have to do it if we're gonna go with some kind of speed mitigation program?
So you are not obligated at this time. VDOT can remove the zones that are not appropriate on the road, like Brewer's Neck and Courthouse Highway in particular. They can just remove them, but they will not reestablish school zones. So if they remove any incorrect or faulty equipment, if there's a maintenance issue, anything like that, VDOT will not take responsibility for reestablishing anything that they remove. Because like I said, the school zones in and of themselves are an optional thing that the schools enforce under their own land use permit. So if they don't want to update their permit, if they don't want to update their equipment, then they can either leave it in there until it's the end of its life cycle and then it would be removed, or they can maintain what they have in whatever working condition they're able to. The challenge comes with how you want to go about enforcing this. This camera ticket, is much more challenging for localities because it's a very different level of enforcement. A lot of the school zones are not necessarily meant for direct enforcement as much as overall community behavioral modification.
So you did, just to reiterate, you did say that VDOT would cover the cost of removal of
They're
some of
helping
these
us
zones
with
if it
some
needs to
of
be
it.
removed.
They are helping us with some of it. They have specific, they can do some of the pavement markings. They can remove signage that's out of date that no one's going to maintain anymore. If we request it, they can go ahead and make the removal because it's in the right of way. So we're trying to work with them on what they are able to do. They can put up non-specific school zone signs, like just the child crossing signs. They can put those up, but they cannot actually establish or reestablish the school zone itself without a permit from the
Which
school
you would
board.
only need if you were gonna do the cameras.
I just found it interesting the way VDOT is, I don't mean to be ugly, that there's not someone on an MOU or something that when we put that stuff out, say on a Brewer's Neck, that we weren't responsible for removal. I'm surprised. I'm
So
glad.
the,
Probably predates
I was gonna
some
say,
of
the
that.
permit says that we're responsible for maintenance. It doesn't say
Removal.
specifically
I
removal.
bet you nowadays it would.
It might. The agreements that we found are from the 90s, the early 90s. So,
Wasn't
I'm
it?
just looking at this, cost and think it's an unbudgeted item, so I'm not sure that it fits into our plan.
Well, it's not, fortunately, it's not
We don't have to do
required,
That's good.
but we did not want you to not know that part of the story.
Right.
To just hear, hey, everybody around you has these radar, units in place, revenues coming in hand over fist. This is a great thing. It deters speeders. Okay, there's another side to this conversation in terms of how it affects Isle of Wight.
And has the sheriff's department, has the sheriff himself advocated for this presentation to us? Or did this company just petition to be in front of our body?
When you say, I think the sheriff would be in favor of having this additional enforcement tool in place. But when you say advocate, I would.
I want to make sure this is something the sheriff
can't
is
speak for the sheriff.
recommending.
He
that
brought
regard.
Blue Line in front of us
Yeah.
before.
He did.
Yeah,
I don't know why Blue Line, but he brought Blue Line in front of us before.
yes.
I would say too that we did the speed studies prior to this direct conversation with Blue Line at the time because it was just becoming an issue in Hampton Roads in general, and the conversation was being had all over. So we have already started talking with the school district about a phased approach to handle some of these. For example, the ones at Smithfield Middle and High School, we think we might be able to look at some opportunities to wrap that up into the turn lane Route 10 intersection improvement projects. Hardy was already taken care of. We've tried to look at kind of how we can phase these in over the next couple years within budget parameters, and I also did speak with the school district about including it possibly in their future budget plans. It's just a question of what speed you want to do that at, if you want to add this enforcement mechanism that's directly related to them.
I had a conversation with a trooper who does a lot of accident analysis and talked about, because I've gotten complaints from citizens, Blackwater Road, 258, and I think you guys have probably heard a lot of other places too about people just speeding like crazy. And, and I talked with our past DOT individual as well, and he had said, Don, the problem is not signage and issues like that. The problem is character and people who just forget about the law. They want to get where they're going fast. And I'm getting more and more complaints from citizens on those roads my way. I don't know what you guys are hearing in your localities, but they're saying people are just driving insane. On the way here tonight, excuse me, I was on 258 and I was doing 59, okay? And I had a guy blow by me, had to do somewhere between 65 and 70. And, there was oncoming traffic and everything else, and it's continually getting worse. And so I think that's part of the reason we're entertaining and listening to what Blue Line will offer us in different ways. And part of the citizens would say, boy, we don't want that. But there's a whole lot of folks that are also saying, look, it's getting very, very dangerous out there. And our DOT representatives will say the same thing. And, hopefully this would help us as we begin at least looking more intently at the opportunity. Any other comments?
No.
We're gonna look at the school zone speed restrictions too. I think we ought to consider any existing cases or against it. I think in this case, there is a class action that's questioning the legality of them in general, brought by Tim Anderson.
That didn't go anywhere.
It failed? Okay. I'd hate to make the investment and then be something that we couldn't use.
So I will say too, we've requested that the TPO PDC consider doing some, like a case study of best management practices, because we did also have conversations with some of the other localities like Newport News and like Suffolk, and they did give us a few points to consider if we are going to go forward with that as far as best practices. For example, Suffolk said that locating their camera where you can clearly see the signage that's posted in the image that the camera takes.
Well, that's required now.
Yes.
The General Assembly changed
And it
that law.
wasn't before, and that actually led to several of the cases against tickets that were happening. So there are becoming a best management practices as well that we'll probably want to give consideration to if we move forward with this
And it
idea.
requires additional signage because you have to have a speed limit sign 1,000 feet before you enter the warning that you're about to go into a school zone. So
So I mean, there is a lot more information about what best practices look like to implement that if it's something that we decide to move forward with.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jamie.
Talk about things that aren't on the agenda.
Yeah, well, this was on there, but we took a little bit of a detour. Okay, Mike's trying to get to the football game, so we're gonna get him up and,
I'm a fan of neither one. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mike Frickanese, Isle of White County Parks and Recreation Director. And I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the Parks and Recreation Department's CIP. But if you want to get down in the weeds, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Anything I can't answer, I'll take home for homework. So before I dive into it, I just wanted to let you know how our department comes up with our recommendations for the CIP. Try to make it match the comprehensive plan, the county's comprehensive plan, and our master plan. So the idea is to align strategic plan, comprehensive plan, master plan, CIP, operations plan, and our own maintenance plan. So to get everything in alignment. So for example, and I understand that there's a draft of this right now and it's under revision, but in the comprehensive plan, we have things that we're now working on, like improving the park system, working on Tyler's Beach Marina, Henry Bradby Park, which, you see, those are some of the things I'll show you tonight as well. In our master plan, which we used a consultant to help us with, we've identified priorities. I've mentioned before in some presentations to the board that our highest priorities are repairs, improvements, renovations. You can see some of that right here. So just quickly, how do we come up with that besides the eye tests? The consultants that we used to create our master plan actually went to every one of our facilities and did a maintenance evaluation and listed basically, for lack of a better way to say it, from worst to best in facilities. So it gives us an idea of things that we need to correct or repair. And in agreement with most of it, and we've already started addressing many of these things. So for example, you can see down here that Tyler's Beach needs a lot of work, and we've already begun addressing some of those. Camptown, we've already begun addressing some of those. So we do have a plan that results in what we've recommended and what is now on the CIP for this fiscal year. So I'll just go right into the things that are on FY26. So at the top of that, our Parks and Recreation Capital Maintenance Plan, this $150,000. So that is for maintenance, repair, and preservation of existing assets or facilities. So everything from replacing lights to repairing bridges, fences, buildings, painting buildings, repairing restrooms, whatever it is. And essentially what we do is at the beginning of the fiscal year, I sit down with our maintenance manager and we talk about the priorities that we have to work on. This is an example of what we do, and it's actually the one we're working on for this fiscal year. And if you looked at it, you could see, for example, there are a lot of things we're going to be doing at Fort Huger that come from that. There's a lot of things besides the other CIP item for Tyler's Beach. There's a lot of other things that we're going to be doing at Tyler's Beach. We've got some shoreline stabilization we want to do. We want to clean up some of the grass and improve some signage out there. Next on down the list is our Heritage Park restroom design. So during this fiscal year, the goal is to get an approved site plan. That's what that $60,000 is. The concept would be a flushable restroom over near the pavilions. That is, we're looking at 6 stalls per gender, so 6 men, 6 women, and a family stall. So this would be under professional services. This is an example of what it might look like without the platform. So the company that I've already been in touch with and has already provided me a quote and some ideas for concept, we met on site, recently constructed this one at Camp Pendleton. So it's very similar. So this is on the beach. We won't have the platform there, of course. But it would be very similar. CMU, last a long time, very durable.
Looks
Now,
like a bomb shelter.
That's ironic.
so it would be your
Well put.
I
typical
got it.
park restroom that is
Okay.
CMU, easy to maintain, easy to clean, would last a long time, and it would be a pump and haul.
And how much do you think that's gonna cost? 400,000?
So we did get, the same company did give us a very rough construction estimate based on this project, which was 400,000.
And that would be an FY 27, 28?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Next on down the list is, so we have 4 playground systems that the county oversees that we manage. I've replaced 3 so far. The last one is Robinson Park on this list. And we've already met with some vendors who helped us put together this conceptual design, and some people in Windsor, the town manager, someone from the town council, some folks from citizen groups, and they had some input, and we came up with this design. Now, this is going to be on hold pending what happens to the library in Windsor. So this sits on the parcel that is owned by the town of Windsor that the current Blackwater Regional Library for Windsor sits on. So once it's decided what's going to happen with that building and that parcel, we can figure out where this is going to go.
So if it's in the town, why are we paying for the park? Why isn't the town paying for it?
Why doesn't the town pay for it? It's been in our inventory as one of our parks.
We don't pay
Like
for
the
equipment in the
library.
town of Smithfield.
Actually, we do.
Riverview, yes, ma'am.
We do, okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So right behind the Children's Center, there's 2 playgrounds. One of them is ours. As well as the whole park and
Yeah.
tennis
got
courts
and
and
all that.
ball field.
Because it used to be a school site.
Correct. Yes, Nike Missile Park project. So this is, the site plan has been submitted for this. The idea is we're going to put it right in that red circle there between the basketball court and the park-to-park trail head. And it should be ready relatively soon to go out for bid to create that platform there and stick the missile on top, and then we'll figure out how to paint it further on down the line. But hopefully during this fiscal year, we will have a missile in the air at Nike Park.
Fantastic. Still 85,000?
That's an estimate, so we haven't put it out for bid yet to build this platform and then mount and build this railing and then mount it on top.
But is that what we funded?
Yes, ma'am.
85,000?
Correct.
Yeah.
Design is done, we're just waiting on, actually, it's all the way up to permitting now, so the review is complete. So we don't have to pay for design. And Bradby Park, we've discussed this before, and this is in site planning. We've been addressing the review comments on this. We did a change order so we can add a culvert to the site plan, and the survey work is completed for that, so we're just waiting for the new site plan so it can get resubmitted. But that is money in addition to what was previously in the CIP, because the construction estimate came in at twice what we had. And we have submitted for a grant to assist with that, so we'll see where that goes. So that's what's in the current, this year's CIP, so FY '26 CIP. Some things that have been brought forward from previous years are Jones Creek, Bradby Park, which we're working on now. That was originally a few years back, 800,000. We've been spending on that for design. And there's a line item for Heritage Park upgrades. I can talk about those, Jones Creek, in just a second. But the Heritage Park, that is, for example, if we have to replace, which we just did, LEDs, the lights out there, or we work on the ticket booths, or we get Capital Works or utilities to put in water bibs or more electricity out there, it comes out of that. So what we've been doing with Jones Creek is we've been renovating the 3 piers, and we're going to eventually get to the fishing pier. Because it was so costly, we put it out to bid twice. We've been doing it 1 pier at a time to try to control costs. So if you're not familiar with Jones Creek, there's 3 piers out there. We've completed the north pier. We've completed the intermediate pier here and the floating dock. And we have cut a PO. We've accepted a bid and cut a PO to do the south pier, and then when that's done, we're gonna work on the fishing pier, which is this thing at a right angle right here. And then we'll be done with Jones Creek.
So the rest of that project's 94,326,
It depends on,
or that's already funded?
that's already, so that's brought forward, it's already funded. It was originally funded about 150,000, and we've been spending on that for the north pier, the intermediate pier, and the floating dock. And so if it all comes in much less than that, that's great. Out years, so things in the future, so it didn't quite make the list, but yes, we have a construction estimate of about 400,000 for the Heritage Park restroom. And the design that we're working on for this fiscal year will give us an updated construction estimate. So we'll know a little bit more about that. Also in the out years, I have a Nike Park parking lot, which I'll talk about here in a second, and the Blackwater River Park Development Master Plan. So what we want to do is, in Nike Park, this is the parking lot in between the tennis courts and the skate park right there. And we want to renovate, and I promise, I didn't try to find the worst
Looks
pictures.
terrible.
But, so it's beyond resurfacing. So it's beyond patching cracks and just putting it over it. The good news is, about 4 or 5 years ago, they tried to complete this project and a site plan was done. So we may not have to do much as far as site planning for this if we're able to do this project. And Blackwater. So Blackwater's a pretty complicated thing, what's going on out there, but we would like to, I would like to kind of wrap our arms around it, develop a master plan that would help us figure out exactly what we can do as far as recreation out there and how we can start planning for projects.
Yeah, the CIP right now has 200,000, so 100,000 in 2 out years, 28 and 29. So you say it's 100,000, not 200?
I recommended 100,000 for a master plan for Blackwater Park. Yes.
But if you do the master plan, you're probably gonna wanna move forward on some aspect of that plan.
That's probably why the other 100 was
Yes.
in there.
And then it'll
Give
be
you money to
time-
do
is.
something with.
It'll be time to kind of approach it in phases, so.
Yeah.
Similar to what we've done with Henry H. Bradby Park, start taking small bites out of it.
Mike, what's the current recommendation for parkland acres per 1,000 residents?
The current recommendation, and it depends on the type of park. Oops, let me see.
Not to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay, man. I'll do my best to answer, and if not, I can come back with some, so, let's see if I can, there we go. Will that show up? Yeah. So I had this as a hidden slide, and just in case, because it's come up before. So this is part of our master plan, and the idea here is based on, we've got our inventory of parks, total acreage of parks, and then existing service levels, where we meet the standard, where we don't meet the standard. For example, according to our consultants and the standards that we use for that, there's a shortfall in neighborhood parks, shortfall in community parks. So there are different size parks in the Parks and Recreation world. For example, everything from a neighborhood park like Robinson all the way up to a district park like Nike Park. And how much, so per 1,000, how many acres, 0.72 for, so proposed is 2 acres per 1,000 for a neighborhood park. A community park's a little bit different, and on and on and on. District park, 4 per 1,000. And a natural area, that would be Blackwater. We're way over for that.
Right.
But as we've talked about before, Blackwater gets used for hunting. So there's 2 leases on the property. It's hunted extensively. We do sell permits for that, but as far as recreation, it's not well used.
So we currently have 78 and some change acres per 1,000 of all park totals together.
78 and some change.
It's like the 5th column over.
Yeah, that
78.8.
number's
Oh,
yeah, you're
probably
looking-
skewed because of Blackwater.
Yeah, I mean, I understand,
Right.
but there's no standard of proposed service level in total?
For total, and because there are so many different types of parks. So instead of just adding them all together, adding a neighborhood park, a community park, a district park, special use, natural areas, you have to look at it based on the type of park.
So there's a shortfall of 1.3 acres for neighborhood parks. There's a shortfall of 1.5 acres for community parks. There's no community park acreage. I'm looking again at that fifth column.
Yeah.
Under existing service levels. So you have
Mhm.
you have 0.72, but the proposed service level is 2.
Correct.
So we're
As a-
1.68
Yes.
below proposed service. You have 0 acres per thousand of community parks. Is that possible?
By their definition of community park. That doesn't mean we have to have community parks. By their definition of what is a community park. So
But
we
we
have
have-
4, yes, ma'am.
9.1 acres when the recommendation is 4 acres per thousand for the district parks.
Because right, Nike Park is about 150 acres, and then Heritage Park is about 250 acres. So we've got a lot of acreage for those.
So you do kind of have to balance those all.
Yes, depending on what type of park you're looking for.
So in the recent years, we've had communities that were developed in the 70s, we'll say, and there was a lot set aside back in the day for community lot or recreation or whatever. They don't fit into any of these categories, do they? Or would they? Well, you know what I
I
mean?
don't think so, because we've never developed them, and if you will recall, many of them have, the developers or the communities have come back to you all and said,
Right.
we want to use this as residential because it was never developed as a community.
And we've also
asset."
not approved a
said
few
no.
of them too.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
But-
they were never
I
developed.
guess what I'm getting at is the purpose back in the 70s, for example, was to kind of do this in a 1970s way. And only thing we really I took into consideration is how the neighborhoods felt about the piece of property, not so much this entering into the equation, quite honestly. Not to say that we can go around every neighborhood and make it a park,
Right,
but
yes, sir.
who knows, years from now, when land is very scarce, if that land might be something to consider, I don't know.
That's a really good observation. For example, like Sweetgrass has a lot of protected park type areas in their proposed development. So would those acres, to Joel's line of thinking, would those acres count towards the park acres per thousand people calculation?
Once we decide to turn it into a park.
And so
If that's
we
what
decide
we
to
do.
turn it into a park, that means the
So
county owns
just
it.
green
Mike,
space
is this-
can't qualify as.
But this is
So-
public, isn't it?
Mhm.
Right.
Right, so you're asking if, does it take into account things like HOAs and all
Private
those
parks,
things?
Right.
yes.
Yes.
It does?
Yes.
Okay.
So, other inventory.
So that would include the park that
Like
we,
Beal or HOAs, so those are things that don't belong to us. And that all counts,
Oh.
because that's all available to the community. We're not talking about just what we personally own available to the community.
so the park that we protected in the neighborhood that you're referencing, can't remember what it was called.
That was off of Cherry Grove.
Yeah.
Sure
Quite
does.
honestly, later on, it got
Yes.
sucked into another parcel, so
Yeah.
not a good example, but they didn't build a house on it, so.
Okay, but that would have been
That
counted
would
in
have
that
been-
blue column?
Yes, ma'am, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. And the community is being served, so.
I think it got tucked in because they were willing to maintain it and stuff like that, if I remember the conversation right.
I think it's something just for not just this body, but in future. You know, I can think of another neighborhood, it was turned into a residential because nobody ever used it, but it had its own boat ramp that was put in the 1960s. It had a boat ramp and a designated lot that was supposed to be used for the community down the road. And I guess, I say, whoever the board was at the time lost sight of that and thought, well, if everybody wants to, they don't care about it. And anyway, would have been nice to have another boat ramp in the Newport district, potentially. Not that we want to maintain something, but anyway, they don't build those
How
every
about the lot that
day.
that church group wanted to buy?
We gave away an acre at Burrells Bay.
It used
Yeah,
to be
but,
like a pump station or
That was the
something.
piece that.
And we owned it and
Yeah, anyway.
So,
the church
yeah,
went
we've-
in.
I don't remember.
It's a district too, okay. It'd
Oh,
be
that,
kind of
keeping
cool
it
to
for
see
this, I
which
guess.
properties fed
Never
into the
thought
other
about it.
inventory columns. I mean, just all this roll up so that I could look at the,
Yes, I can get that for you.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, I had found a standard of 80 acres per 1,000 residents, and it looks like we're at 78, albeit that a large number of our acreage is tied up in the Blackwater scope. But I just wondered if that was possible, even with our like newer population projections, because again, that number's from 2022 with a lower population than we have currently. So if you just said 42,000 people, I don't know, what are we at, 41,000 and some change right now,
Mhm.
residents, isn't that right?
Mhm.
So if we said 42,000 times 80, that's 3,360 acres, and so we're only at 2,800 and,
We have not added any new parks since 2022, right? So
yeah.
If we rolled in the Blackwater, what would it be?
Well, I mean, that's what
It's
Blackwater,
included.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's-
Blackwater's on there.
So we're at 3,101, and we should
Natural
really, if it's
area.
80 acres per 1,000, it should be at 3,600, or 3,360. So we're only 200 acres off, but.
Not bad.
And we have, when that was created, when the county purchased it, and then because we purchased it with state money from DCR and DOF, we had to turn around and lease it back to them. They set aside areas for recreation. So there are areas within there that we can develop. Now, there's a lot of restrictions on how we can develop that, because half of Blackwater is in what's called a natural area preserve, an NAP, controlled by DCR, so there's very
Mhm.
little you can do about it. The other half is DOF, and they control for forestry. But there may be some things that we can do to add there. It probably wouldn't be the kind of place you'd see playgrounds, but there would be hiking and trails and overlooks and ways to get to the river, if I have my way.
This may sound like I'm not gonna say stupid question, but, can a waterway be considered a park? Like,
Some places do consider them blueways. Yes, some places do. We don't have any.
we don't own any, like, even acres or space out from Jones Creek or Tyler's Beach? We don't own any of that waterway?
The way it's described to me is that once you get into the water, it belongs to the state.
Yeah, but we owned a mean high water, mean high water. In river, in tidal water, we own to mean high water.
I don't know what that means.
Wherever high tide normally hits on the beach, that's where our land stops.
So do we automatically lose it if erosion takes place?
Depends on, or you may gain some. If I lose it to erosion, you may gain my sand. So yes, you do lose based on tidal flows.
And are you identifying future park sites as a part of your master plan?
No, the master plan does not identify potential parcels or locations for them. Again, the overall emphasis is on renovation, repair of current facilities. So, but if there are properties that the board or the county brings to our attention and would like to purchase and put a park or playground on, that's something we could look at. I could give my recommendation about what the cost would be and how it would affect operating costs.
So to me, we have a lot of irons in the fire. I'd like to see us get a few of them taken care of before we moved on to more parks. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and the reason I asked the question was
Uh-huh.
just for a strategic planning discussion, if the standard is 80 acres per 1,000, I wanted us all to
Yes, ma'am.
understand where we
Understood.
sat with regard to that, and,
Hmm.
you shoot at nothing, you're never gonna, you don't have a goal, you're never gonna get it, right? So, just wanted to know.
Has this been trending up over the years or trending down? As far as
Not sure I understand.
the recommended acreage, this isn't a one-time recommendation. I'm sure there's been previous studies, et cetera. I mean, I assume that it keeps going up. Is it trending up to where 10 years, 20 years from now, we need to add a percentage to that, to Mrs. Roundtree's point?
The trend has been, I understand now, sir. So the trend has not been in the Parks and Recreation world towards, well, it is conservation, so the preservation of green space for future generations. But more so is access. So, for example, the National Parks and Recreation Association has created this 10-minute walk standard to parks. So, and asking park systems and municipalities to try to look at it like that. You know, how many of your neighborhoods have a park within a 10-minute walk? And that's pretty tough to do here, but that's kind of like what the goal is now.
That's also places that don't have as much rural acreage as we have. You don't really need a park to walk around when you live on 400-acre farm.
But I've seen some creative ways of doing that where they have a walking trail and literally you have things along the walking trail that create opportunities for recreation and exercise. And so I suspect they probably count that into their parks inventory.
The trail, it would be a part of the parks inventory.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yes, sir.
And what final steps could we be helpful in completing the park-to-park trail? Like what segments have left to be done?
Town
Well, the
segment.
the Smithfield section.
Just Smithfield?
That would get us from Nike Park to Windsor Castle Park, park to park. So it's the town of Smithfield. Yes, ma'am.
Now, Ms. Roundtree, there is a larger discussion going on with regard to the regional trail system
Oh.
that would add quite a bit of additional mileage to the trails. But I think more specifically, it's the portion of the town that ties the parks together that we've been focused on.
Jamie can talk a lot about trails and that plan. But as far as the park to park, half of it's done. The other half is getting up South Church Street and across the bridge to Windsor Castle Park.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask one question, making sure I'm understanding. With the amenities, there's a need for playground equipment that's specified on there, ages 5 to 12. On the CIP, there is an upgrade to playground equipment, correct? So that, is that
Robinson.
specifically addressing that amenity?
Robinson would address the 5 to 12 unless we do a 2 to 12 for Robinson.
Okay.
And you typically put in, those are the two age groups that you usually see. And if you go to a school, you're going to see a 5 to 12. You don't have to be 5 to 12 to play on it, but that's usually hits the kind of the sweet spot for most kids who play on a playground. In Nike Park, we recently put in a 2 to 12, so we could address all of those, but we would probably do that for Robinson.
Okay.
I know you've given us this before, but I really like this one sheet summary, if we can get it again. The one you
Yeah.
hid, but thank you for pulling it out.
That'd be great. Other discussion? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kelly? He was waiting in the shadows out there.
Mm.
This be Public Works.
Is it?
There we go.
I'm Tony Wilson. I'm the Public Works Director. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me. I'll try to make this as less boring as possible.
Glad to have you this evening.
All right, so what I'm going to do is kind of give you an update on some, go into shortfalls and also future projects. And I was hoping this would be a lot bigger than this. So,
Looks like something I would have done.
it looked good on the screen. It could be these that helped. but-
Always looks bigger when you're at your desk.
Crazy.
You can zoom in on it, can't you?
You probably have to come out of the presentation to do it, but.
Let's see.
Yeah, bottom, yeah, there you go.
Blew it up.
There you go.
I can. Oh, that was disappointing. I thought, all right, well, come on.
I'll have maybe a little bit smaller time.
I'm trying.
There we go. There you go.
Hey, that'll work. So what I was going to do is start off with current funded projects and kind of give a little update of where we are with them. First one is Rushmere Fire Department. We're probably at about 70% completion on that. They should have it dried in probably by the end of next week. So that's moving along really well. The clerk's office, this has been going on about 4 years now, Don. I keep getting pulled off of it, and we keep getting termites. But anyway, I'm hoping for a April completion date on that. And then we had a big project, we're replacing the DOAS unit in Alawite's rescue squad. That's been installed. I'm waiting for the manufacturer representative to come to fix the programming on that, and that would be completion. This building here, we had some moisture infiltration and also some termite infiltration. So we have renovated the downstairs. We'll finish these offices and have the chief back in his office by October the 1st. We finished the roof work. We've put new gutters up on the side. The project went really well. So after that, we'll have to do a storage room downstairs and the hallway where the bathrooms are to kind of rebuild where the termite damage was. The self-contained compactors you funded this year, they're on order. So as soon as we get those in, we'll install those to those sites. The Public Works, our shelter, is we're actually soliciting for bids now. We went through, it was a design build. We got the qualification for, those that we felt were best for it, and we're soliciting bids in the next month. And now, projects with shortfalls. As you know, you funded the design on the Carrollton Fire Department. In the next 2 weeks, we'll have our kickoff meeting for that bunker room addition. Windsor Library, I'm expecting the scope of service within the next 2 weeks, so we can actually review that and see the cost. The holdup on that is they found that they could perhaps save some money by doing a different type of BMP, which will save a lot of money, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000.
Instead of 2.6 million, it's another 2.2 million? I mean, is that 2 point?
It's 2.1, it should be, because I believe in it,
Really close to 2.2, okay.
yeah. And the dreaded Paul D. Camp job that I've been trying to bid for a year now is coming back with bad bids. I did find a state contract that I can ride on to do this job. He's putting a price together for me now that I think I can get below $615, and that'll just be for the HVAC. So it's going to be a shortfall there to do the roof also. The problem with that project is cutting into the roof, setting the curbs, and having to install additional support structures within the steel members of the cross structures. That's the big expense of doing that. But I did find out if I bid it now and then, have a delayed contract in June, I'm ahead of the game. Because what happened last year is all the contractors were working on schools, colleges, different things. I came into the wrong time. So it should be a savings realized if I get the contract signed now with a delayed start date.
So what's the shortfall on that one?
It's, let's see, under 200, I think. Yeah, just
And
under 200.
that's above the
196.
265,000 that's above the 265 we budgeted?
That's correct. Now, once I get the bid back for that, it may go down some, I'm just going with it came back last time was 615. So whatever the saving is on that, reduce the in the cost. And future projects. And this is what I give to administration every year. This sheet never changes. I kind of keep the same format, other than entered into, what is it called now?
Open go.
Yeah, OpenGov.
Munis? Or the
Yeah,
budget system?
OpenGov. So, so what we're talking about is rehabbing with, replacing the pavement at Carsville, and that project was also gonna have, the fire department was gonna be paved and also fixed the cracked aprons on there. That was $350,000 that I'm waiting on. And Staves Mill, R&R Center, Carroll Bridge is kind of some small things with the, self-contained compactors, rerouting and new pavement as far as to have better flow to the sites. We've had a lot of success in that. And the big one is we have 10,000 visitors a month at Jones Creek right now. So we're running out of room. And with all the developments come in, we went out there and looked, and there's a field on the trailer park side of Jones Creek that we may want to consider purchasing to expand that site for these developments. If we buy that, we can fairly cheaply rearrange and replace compactors and stuff, with that land.
But then people going to the boat ramp drive through the middle of the R&R Center?
I'm sorry.
If you bought the land on the trailer park side, people going to the boat ramp would drive through the R&R Center.
Yeah, but you'd
I would
have
hope not, but
service
they
on
don't
both
do it now,
sides.
so. You have the service gates where it is now. You would just expand the flow. So
Okay.
let's say we went in and bought the field, you would come in and go this way, and it would be fenced off, and that road would still take you to the boat ramp.
Gotcha.
I get what you're
Great.
saying now. So that was I think that really needs, when we were doing the comp plan, we said, we need to plan for convenience centers. The bad thing is, nobody wants a convenience center near their house. So if we expand an existing facility, especially for that area that's very condensed, it could only, and I think you could do it relatively cheap if you could arbitrate the purchase of the land. So,
Who owns that land?
the trailer park, so I looked that up, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the specific owner is,
I
but
know
yeah,
it's been sold a few times
Yeah.
now. And we always had a capital maintenance fund, and that was for unforeseen repairs. This year I had a public workshop that I needed to do. I needed to put windows and do some renovations in the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, that was not funded this year. I don't know how that, normally it is funded, just as Parks and Rec, I have that, obligations too, so
You got 50,000, right?
I got nothing. So,
I had a placeholder for capital maintenance for Public Works at 50,000.
yeah, we went back and looked and it
I
wasn't.
don't know why that one slipped through the cracks. I mean, it was supposed to be funded. I think 100,000 was supposed to be funded this
Yeah,
year. But if I need the money, you guys would be good to me, right? All right. So next, we went to Chief Winley. He went to all the stations and says, look, if you had a top 5 list of what you wanted fixed at your stations, what would it be? In 2021, we did assessments. And these books have sat dormant, so we're trying to get some traction and fix some of these things. So we went to Carrollton, we asked them, and this is their top 5. The good thing is, we're doing a bunkhouse, and these are pretty much already in what I'd scoped out originally. So when we do the bunk room addition, these will be incorporated into that price. So that'll take care of that. Some of them we can do in-house. And we went to Carsville. Once again, they wanted the apron in the parking lot paved. So if we do Carsville Convenience Center, that'll be incorporated into that project. So that's a good bang for the buck there. Apparatus bay floors hadn't been painted in 30 years, so they need it. The bay doors, if you go up to Carsville, you'll see they have pretty much lost all the vacuum seal in them, and they've turned white, and they're $18,000 a door. So, you know, it's like painting and the pump house repairs, we're gonna do that in-house, so that's what that's what I predicted it would cost them. And of course, Rushmere, they're happy with us right now. And so Windsor, they wanted to repair and apply epoxy on their floors. Their concrete apements are really damaged, and it's because most of these stations, when they were built, had a light-duty asphalt. Now that the apparatus is so much heavier, it is just cracking. That and shrink and swell with, you know, and sprawl from the snow removal has happened too. And Windsor Rescue Squad said they just want a new rescue squad. They gotta have it. But we had talks during when we were doing the assessments of combining Windsor Fire and Rescue together and do pretty much what we did at Rushmere, and thought that would be the best bang for the buck. As far as combining that, add bunk rooms to your apparatus bay, and then they can have a shared facility there. So something really to think about to save some money. And of course, I think Gary brought this up, and that's the new 911 center. I think his price was a little lower than mine. I think mine's more realistic after talking to an architect, especially what all goes into the EOC, cells, holding and stuff like that. So 25 million would be more realistic if you was to do a central command center here. And then I went off a little. I have a generator replacement list. Now, we have 13 generators that we maintain and 6 coming on board from the towers, I believe. So and you can see the ages of them here. That's 19 years old. Now, you can get 30 years out of a generator if it's properly maintained and has low run hours. We're fortunate enough that ours are maintained and they have low run hours on them. So you're looking at replacing them at 30 years. I'll be long gone. But it's something to think about in the next 5 years. How might you want to fund this? These prices I got from Bay Diesel as far as the replacement, like the one at the middle school, I mean, you're talking about replacing not only the generator, but the transfer switch too, because the technology has to support that. So it's kind of crippling, you know, some of these larger generators.
We bought all the generators the same year?
These were actually purchased under a contract with,
Electric.
Community Electric. And what I did is bought it.
It was a lease purchase agreement.
So at the end of it, we bought it out and saved about $80,000 a year by buying them out and doing it in-house.
So Tony, I knew the generator at the power station, the guy come up and do maintenance, and he maintain it every month or whatever, come up and check it. So he don't update it as needed?
No, and we can't update the technology because we'd have to change out panels and whatnot. So what we do is regular maintenance. It gets quarterly, well, our guy goes up there and checks it usually on a weekly basis, but we have quarterly PMs done and then load testing one time a year with Bay Diesel. They have the state contract.
In my mind, said it might run every week, maybe, 1 hour unless the power will go out.
Right.
But other than that,
I think it
the
runs 2
generator
hours
should
on
last.
Tuesday, that's it, it don't run. Well, just like, for instance, we just replaced your automatic transfer switch 2 years ago, and I think that cost $8,000 for that transfer switch. So, something to think about as let's say they get 25 years old. Whether you want to invest money in a pool, just say, I want to put away so much money and kind of offset it, or do we want to fund this? As you see, the 19 years is the heavy ones, within $1 million. That's going to hit you hard as you replace them. But if you do one starting in 20, 30, and go that way, one a year, then that can kind of get you without a significant impact.
When that original project with those generators, what does that look like? I mean, I know we save money, we all save money by bringing them in-house with maintenance and all that stuff, but the startup costs, because a lot of generators that were involved in that program one time, if I remember. Was there any benefit doing that type of collaboration or agreement?
They came in and, we didn't have it, you know, and they said, well, look, we'll install them for you for this price and charge you this month per year. So I think, actually, it was the first year we bought them out, we saved like $235,000 by bringing them in-house.
Right.
The good thing is that I had, you know, a couple people in-house that could, you know, work on them, plus with a state contract, it helped too.
How many of those, I know Carrollton, for example, I guess they still do, have a shared tank that they fill the trucks off of. Is there any other ones?
We have tank problems now, but anyway,
Yeah, I
I
heard
think
something about that.
Carrollton has a shared tank.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but some of them do, right?
I know Carrollton has it. I know Rushmere don't. You don't share a tank. That's,
You don't fill your
Maybe the
trucks up
only
with
one.
diesel off the tank, off the generator, do you?
you don't,
do?
you don't fuel your trucks with a diesel generator.
Yes, it does.
You do?
Yep.
I'm just saying because there's gonna be some additional costs maybe associated with that for his fueling apparatus.
Yeah, well, we may need to look at these tanks just to make sure.
Well, we've had some problems with some tanks.
Yeah.
And the problem is, there's individual tanks out there that have been put in by the, you know, the stations themselves. I don't maintain them. I maintain the generators, so I maintain the generators and the tank on the
Well,
generator.
as you know, that tank came with that generator.
Yes, yeah. So, but there are standalone out there that nobody maintains, and that's why we've run into some problem lately with repairs, because nobody maintains them. We have, in the last 2 years, went out and purchased them because we had a contact to do so, but we need to determine who's going to maintain those tanks. Is it going to be the county? Is it going to be the stations as far as for fueling? You know, because really need to look into additives and stuff to keep diesel bugs and stuff out of it and algae and stuff. But this is something to think about 5 years from now. And the next thing, I have to come up with an HVAC and a roof replacement schedule. In the next 4 or 5 years, there are going to be chillers that need to be replaced on social services, on the administration building, on the courts building, and that's, you're talking a chiller $60,000 to replace, and that's not even really, and that's if the internal parts with the return and supplies for the chilling is in good shape, which it should be at the first cycle. But I need to come up with a plan for the next guy coming in here to say, all right, this is what I need to put away for the money. Garland Roof Systems approached me 2 weeks ago and wants to do an assessment of our roofs at no cost to us. Yeah, so, but they are a premium company, turnkey, and I think they just done a roof assessment for the schools. So I'm gonna let them do that for us, and I'm hoping that they don't all say poor, because I know that's not true. But that's a good way to, you know, actually get an assessment done.
I think the same thing would apply with the generators too, but I would encourage you to come up with, after you get the assessment and all, a replacement plan. It's just like you said, okay, starting 25, we could do something, but we go back to the generators, we come back with roof replacement, just like we've done on other projects. Okay, by 26 or 27 or 30, if that's when we decide to start, go ahead and have a rough plan of, we're going to do these three, and in 31, we're going to do these three, and so on. Go ahead and try to develop a plan so we can see it and be at least thinking about it as we come to our budgets.
Okay, I think about 5 years ago, I put together a plan. Let me see if I can bring it up. All I have to do is update the numbers, and I think it was putting away $200,000 a year for 5 years gives you $1 million. I mean, so that is what I had in mind, unless you want to sole fund it with one big let's go out to market and replace all of them, borrow the money and replace them over 5 years, the only other thing you could do. If you don't put it aside, then you're just gonna have to borrow it
Right.
and then take that money and use it as necessary. That's
I think
what
putting
what
it
come up with
aside-
Last time.
Excuse me, putting it aside is a better plan. And that way we can see it and we'll be reminded, okay, this is what it's for. And we stay ahead of it instead of
It
getting
should also
behind.
draw interest, so that don't hurt, so.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
If you had to guess about the Jones Creek Refuse R&R Center, to expand it, is that $1 million, 500,000?
The problem is the price of the land. That's what I don't know. You know, because they could run it up or we could. But probably with a couple of $100,000, we could put down asphalt and rearrange some stuff relatively cheap for a start off and then see how the flow works and then add to it as we've done in the past. The main thing is actually purchasing the land. And that's very important because it's very crowded. If you go down there on Saturdays and Sundays, we got 3 people working there and it's backed up pretty good, so.
Do you ever provide any numbers, particularly for the Newport DSD, on how many people are taking our third party up on trash collection? To get a feel for what percentage are using trash collection pickup versus the refuge center?
Yeah, I could probably get the numbers from GFL. I mean, if they finally got this.
At some point in time, it seems to me, whether, it probably won't be, of course, won't be by this board, but some board somewhere is gonna have to say it's an antiquated way to do it because, anyway, I'm not so sure all that refuge is coming from our citizens at times. And that's no plug on your workers and all, but I don't know.
Now, you know, all residential waste we pay for anyway.
Right, but I'm just saying the pickup, so we don't have to run refuge centers.
I think the
One day.
refuge centers are actually for the larger items. I mean, that's what the benefit is for, you know, if you're taking bulk items, white goods, or things like that. I
Well, no
mean,
doubt, but when you got people lined up with their white trash bags
Absolutely.
on a Saturday trying to get rid of all of it.
Same way
At some
in
point in
Six-
time, somebody's gonna wanna know, are you gonna build another one? And to your point, nobody wants one of those in their backyard.
Absolutely. We looked for some sites, me and Michael rode around looking for sites in different areas of the county. And really, you know, we found a nice piece of land over there by Ren's, you know, mill towards Pearls Bay, and then you look at it and you say, well, that won't fly. I mean, people just raise Cain.
You don't check IDs when people drop
Yes, we
off?
do. If it's suspicious, we check them.
But I know of people that have their IDs that no longer live in the county, but they still have their county old driver's license. These guys, there's no way for them to know.
Suspicious, I mean, we get a lot of contractors in there that are not contractors. So if you're coming in with a pickup truck load of, you know, debris and trailer full of debris that's construction debris, or you've renovated a house, they'll pull your ID. On average, most people they understand and they follow the rules. But you always have those few people that, you know, that's what they do, try to save it down. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amy to come back to the podium and, it's not last on the agenda tonight, but,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I think this is me. We put together a presentation. Funding for transportation projects is a little bit complicated because they're large and they're long-term, and it takes a little bit to get your arms around it. So I kind of formatted this as a little bit of a general update on how we go through transportation capital projects. And you can certainly dive in at any point for what you're really interested in. The first understanding to have for Isle of Wight County is that there's 2 types of roads in the county when we're looking at projects. One is public roads. Those are VDOT maintained. They are not county roads. They belong to the state or through state right-of-way or easement. The other is private roads, and those are lot owner maintained. Now, some of those have specific shared use easements. Some of them have shared driveway agreements or shared road maintenance agreements. The planning department is certainly trying to implement a regular expectation for shared maintenance agreements, but those are private roads and those are not something that we can easily assist with or spend public money on because they're basically private infrastructure. You're going on a private lot. The other thing to note is that there's 3 types of road construction project management that we utilize. One is private developer funded and administered under a VDOT land use permit. So this is, for example, when Ben's Grant or Sweetgrass comes and says they're gonna put in a right turn lane, then they actually have to get with VDOT directly, pull the permits for that and install it themselves and go through the inspection process directly with VDOT and have that approved. The other is VDOT administered public projects. This is when VDOT funds it or gets funding for it, or the county gets funding for it and we hand that funding over to VDOT. VDOT manages that project in-house. That's what's happening on Nike Park Extended. And then there's our locally administered program. That is when the locality administers a public project. And this is something that requires regular certification and requalification. Our staff has to be certified every 3 years to utilize this program under the state. And then we also have to qualify for each project that we want to administer. We have to file what's called a request to administer and qualify with the state, showing our credentials to be able to manage projects the way they expect. This goes into types of road funding, and this is not specific grant opportunities. This shows that we use a plethora of opportunities for funding, whether that comes from the private side and the developer is doing construction directly in lieu of a cash contribution, or whether they're actually doing a cost share, similar to what we're doing for the Turner Drive Roundabout project. There's also numerous venues for public funding, some of those that VDOT maintains as maintenance dollars. That's what the Franklin residency comes up here and talks to you about, mowing, potholes, that sort of thing. The county doesn't get access to those, but we can collaborate and coordinate with VDOT on how some of that is spent. There's also public funding with state and federal grants, and a lot of these are pass-throughs for our state agency. So it's federal highways dollars or it's EPA dollars, and they're funneled through our state agency, and that's where our LAP program comes in. And then we also have public funding that comes directly from the agency. So federal highways will give us a direct grant and it does not involve VDOT at all. And then of course there's local funding through taxes or bonds at the county level, and that would be CIP, what we would refer to as CIP dollars. One of the important things to understand is that each of these funding mechanisms, one, we use as many as possible to create a cost-efficient project for our locality, but also all of them come with different strings attached, expectations, specifications that we have to meet, etc. So each time we use one of these, we have to look at the specific needs of that funding as we move the project forward. The funding opportunities are constantly cycling open and closed based on legislative shifts, taxing projections, market conditions, and local priorities. Using grant funding for us has always required a long-term strategy. The 5 or 10 years that we look at in the CIP is the minimum for us. It's not unusual for us to be looking 20 years out. The TPO is getting ready to look at CMAQ funds starting in FY 2033 before they would even be available. So long horizons are not unusual for us. But to apply for any funding, you have to have a clear statement of purpose and need, show that it's a priority value for the community. This includes showing that it meets all of your comp plan requirements, your countywide transportation requirements, your zoning ordinance requirements. We have to actually document all of those things to move a project forward. It also has to, once we start moving it forward, have clear regional and fiscal value. And at the moment, the state in particular is really big on this cost-benefit ratio situation, so we do have to look at that as well. You have to have a clear scope, schedule, and cost estimate at the time that you're trying to move the project forward. I don't always have a lot of faith in cost estimates that are basically at a 0 to 1% design. But what you're doing at that point is you're starting with your cost plus a 50% contingency. And then as you go through design at 30%, you might reduce your contingency to 20%. At 50%, you might reduce your contingency to 10%. But you start with a really high contingency, but we do have to have that cost estimate before we have any reasonable expectation of moving a project forward. And because of all these requirements, our program usually requires both focus and flexibility. So we try to hone down on what it is we want to accomplish, but then be very flexible on the timing and funding and how we go about getting there. So our current program update, just to go through this, fully funded construction projects that we have right now. These should all be familiar to you. We just finished 2 rural rustic paving projects. Smithfield sidewalk is under construction and should be finished in the next 30 days. Gwaltney Way Extension is also under construction and should be finished in the next 30 days. Nike Park Road extended will be finishing up later this year. We have the 2 Suffolk Transit bus stops that we're working on in Windsor. We're expecting that pilot route to start in January. Windsor intersection, which we call the DQ intersection, is currently in right-of-way acquisition and should be moving to construction advertisement this winter, hopefully before the end of the year, and construction would start in the spring. We also have Smithfield intersection, which we recently had the public hearing for. We're expecting construction advertisement in spring of 2026 for that project. Turner Drive left turn lane, Route 10 Turner Drive left turn at the Sherwin-Williams, the extension for that, as well as the greater intersection project of dual lefts and a roundabout, are both kicking off PE in the next 45 days and are looking at construction advertisement by the winter of 26. And then Route 17 widening phase 1 and 2 was just funded in Smart Scale, and we have been notified by VDOT that we have an opportunity to move phase 1 forward immediately. So we are pursuing and taking a look at that. We can go into more depth on that if we want to. But phase 2 is also fully funded in the 6-year plan with PE kicking off in 2030.
Jamie, if you could talk a little bit more about the opportunity that we have and what might be required from the board, because we'll need to take action on that relatively soon if that's something the board wants to move forward on.
Sure. So the CIP that you currently have shows, I believe, Route 17 Phase 1 out in, starting in FY 29 or 30, possibly 32. And it does show it as fully grant funded because it is fully grant funded. However, these projects are in our CIP because we have to front fund them and then get reimbursed on a rolling basis every 30 to 90 days as we go through the project. So we did also put it in the CIP in phases, chunks of PE right away, and then construction a few years later because you don't have to fund all of it at one time. However, VDOT called us just a week or 2 ago, I literally think it was a week or 2 ago, and told us that we have the opportunity to advance the project, but to advance the project, they want us to start PE in October.
No problem.
It is still 100%.
So it's 7.6 million and then 41.7 million.
No, so that is both phases together. This would be phase 1 only that would be advancing, and I pulled the numbers.
So we would have to pull,
So basically, we'd be looking at moving the whole schedule in CIP up at least 3 years. We'd be looking at PE funding of approximately 1.9 if you wanted to do that the first year, and then within a year to 18 months, you'd be looking at 3.2 for right-of-way and utilities. So I would recommend when we move it forward that we consider moving the full 5.2 forward as a PE right-of-way block. And then you have 10.7 in construction funding, which could come a year or 2 after that when you're ready to go to advertisement. And then phase 2 is still out there in 2030, 2032. So if we do anything with it, if we got any updates, we would bring those independent. It is still fully funded, but it's definitely in the out years still.
so we have to identify $5.2 million for PE and design, but then we get paid back that amount?
Correct, and this is a little bit out of my lane into the budget and finance department on how the accounting for that works as far as whether we anticipate the entire amount in cash. In the CIP, as far as having bonding and funding is not normally how we account for 100% reimbursement once we have a state commitment. So we would need to touch base with budget and finance on what they want that to look like.
We'll pull something together relatively quickly because, like I said, I think VDOT's looking for a fairly quick response for us, from us.
And we'd have to vote on it in September if they want an answer in
In 2
October.
weeks, yeah.
If we end up having to push it to October, then we would simply have to do it, but it would definitely have to be resolved by the October meeting. We couldn't go any later.
Be clear, we have to vote on the entire CIP in 2 weeks, or a portion of it can be approved.
It would be just this
So,
project
yeah,
change.
so keep in mind, you've already adopted the CIP. This would be an amendment specific to that project.
Okay, for the current fiscal year.
Just moving the timing.
Right,
Now-
okay.
Because it's in here, but it's in here, 29, 30, and 30, 31.
It's the moving it back from a previous year that's approved that's I was concerned about.
The other part that we would have to do, though, is, it's not just the CIP. The CIP is a plan. We'd also have to amend the capital budget to
And
reflect that.
appropriate the money.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
probably 3 different pieces to it, yeah.
Yeah, at least 2, but yeah, maybe 3.
Okay.
So moving from fully funded construction project to pipeline projects, and this gets to the idea I was discussing of flexibility, is we keep a large board of pipeline projects that we are constantly investigating and trying to keep fairly current on the shelf as far as scope, schedule, need, budgets, estimates, trying to keep up with some idea of what the market is so that we have them available as grant funding becomes available. For example, as administrations change, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, new grants become available. And a lot of times they have timelines that are related to the actual administration. So, for example, several years ago, the ERA funding, American Recovery Reinvestment Act, those were projects that had to go to construction within 12 months. That is not an easy thing to accomplish in VDOT's world. So it's always good to try to keep things ready, which is what we try to focus on with our pipeline projects. Keep those things constantly looking for a way to move forward. So some of the things that are on here are probably familiar. We've taken almost all of them forward as grant applications at least once or twice already. Broadwater 620 is improvements, reconstruction for safety with no new actual capacity. Not adding lanes, improving the shoulders, improving stormwater, improving visibility. Turner Drive improvements is the same. This is past the high school, past the bridge, improvement for shoulder widening, lane widening, ditch improvements, that sort of thing. It's called reconstruction with no new capacity. Ben's Church Route 10 widening from Riverside to Kroger. This is a project that we're exploring this year in the scoping phase. This came out of the master plan work that we did. That segment of Route 10 has been popping up as a high congestion location with the TPO for years now. So we're trying to do some corridor studies and get a handle on what that needs to look like. Route 460 from Windsor to Suffolk improvements. We've scoped this twice with VDOT. We have not gotten any traction because of the cost benefit analysis. This is also a reconstruction without additional capacity because we're not adding lanes. But what it does propose is to add some median controls for turns, turn lanes, shoulder improvements, overall safety improvements from the edge of the town of Windsor over to the Suffolk line to kind of match up with the projects that they're doing coming from their, are they calling it Port 460 project, to tie in with some of the improvements they have planned on their side of the corridor. We've applied twice for funding for that and haven't gotten any traction yet. The Route 17 displaced left at Bartlett, they came up from the arterial preservation plan that we're doing. We're taking a look at what the scope and schedule and cost for that would be. We should have some results on that by the end of the year to have some idea if we want to move that forward into a smart scale application. We have several trail and sidewalk projects. One, because they're all connectors on existing trail networks that we have that we're trying to move forward. And two, because these projects are extremely important regionally and statewide, and they tend to have direct legislative funding. So we want to make sure that we have a handle on any of those if we were asked. The Ragged Island Trail connector is one that we did with VDOT last year that actually includes scoping trail connection from Eagle Harbor to Ragged Island to tie into the improvements that the state is doing down there. And then we are coordinating with the Route 17, Route 10, Carrollton area, Newport District bus route with the city of Suffolk for Suffolk Transit, so that we can connect down that 17 corridor to what they call the Purple Line, which picks up at the Bennett's Creek area and will give our citizens access to all of Harborview. That's all I have. If you want to get into any of this, we can certainly do that. I didn't throw a lot of numbers up here because they're big numbers, and we don't really fund transportation directly the same way we fund other projects, so.
I got one question. Have you ever thought about extending the right turn lane off of Route 10 to Turner's Drive? I think it
We
would.
have looked at that once or twice. That will likely be a project that needs to be looked at as part of both the widening and possibly what is coming up with the promontory.
Yeah.
If the promontory is approved, I believe there's some.
It was approved.
On Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, so it has some lengthening of that turn lane. In that, I think some adjustments to that will have to come when we put the roundabout in, because there's a slip lane for the roundabout. If the promontory moved forward, that will access the connector road behind those commercial lots. But yes, I think that's important, and it'll be looked at for sure during the widening.
And the turn lane can't be but so close to the right end, to the commercial sites up front, right? So there's probably limitations there as to how long the turn lane can go.
Correct, yes, we're running into the same thing at the Grange.
Yeah.
The 460 Windsor to Suffolk, VDOT has not commented. Do you think that's because part of the project has not started yet, or they still need to do additional impact, and what are you looking for them to comment to?
So it's not so much that they haven't commented. They actually got with us and we put in smart scale applications for safety improvement projects on 460. However, they did not score well. And one of the reasons is because of that cost benefit analysis, because on 460 to widen the typical profile of the road, you have to move the ditch lines out, and then you're relocating all of the utilities. So then you're relocating utility easements, and then you're having large right-of-way takes, and trying to get your hands around that at a very high level becomes challenging, and the numbers were too high for the cost benefit without additional capacity improvements. They just didn't score well. They did further up the corridor in some of the more rural areas where their smart scale scoring is related to safety more than congestion, but we're in the rest of Hampton Roads region and we focus on congestion more than safety, not exclusive of safety, but more than safety. So our scoring criteria did not score well. I believe Sussex or Southampton got a 460 improvement project further out down the corridor. So I don't know that Smart Scale is going to be a good venue for that, much like Sugar Hill. It has not been a good venue for Sugar Hill because the cost benefit, once you apply all of the Smart Scale criteria, just aren't there. We have also looked at federal grants like the Protect grant, which focuses on resiliency, evacuation routes, and that sort of thing. And we're looking at a couple of economic development related opportunities to try to move that project forward instead. But much like our other projects where we talk about having a handle on the scope, schedule, and budget, the more you understand the project, the better you're able to focus your application.
Yeah.
And we have limited resources for how much we can invest in exploratory PE. So, but we've done some preliminary sketches. We've met a couple times with the city of Suffolk. We've made a couple of grant applications, which give us direction to start honing in a little bit. But we're going to have to do some more direct utility and right-of-way investigations before we're able to move that forward in a realistic way.
So in that discussion on the safety side of it, was part of the discussion related to stacking lanes as well as extended turn lanes to move some of that truck traffic off of the main highway? Was that a part of that? I know there was some in the initial plan, but Did you dig in on that at all, or?
So in the project that we've scoped for Protect, it does include some conversation of that. The fact is that with VDOT, what they're looking at is widening the existing lane in the existing right-of-way footprint and/or what happens when you get out of that existing footprint. So we did not get that far into it with VDOT because the numbers were just too high at the planning level phase.
Okay.
So we would really have to kind of survey or start to at least point survey where the utilities that actually have to be relocated are. Because the way VDOT looks at it is, if you have to move 5 poles, we might as well estimate that we have to move all the poles on the corridor. Because at this level, we don't know one way or another, so that's the best way to do it. If you want to get to a better number that's more realistic to move forward, you do have to sit down and say, we have to move these 5, we don't have to move those 10, we do have to move these 4. Like, you have to start narrowing down into that information. VDOT did not go that deep into it with us.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the trails, do items that fall within this, the Trail 757 system have a higher likelihood of grants?
I'm sorry?
Regarding the trails on here,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that fall in the Trail 757 regional plan, do they have a higher chance for grants, or does that not play a role?
So it depends. 757 has got a lot of traction regionally as existing, but not a lot of it is being funded directly yet because people are still focused on funding other, like the Seaboard Trail has gotten a lot of traction in Suffolk. When we looked at the 757 trail, we broke it into 3 segments. North of Smithfield out to the county line, through Smithfield and Ben's Church, and then from Ben's Grant south to the Suffolk city line. And we focused first on that 3rd segment for a couple of reasons. One, because there's a lot of moving parts in the town of Smithfield, and we have a lot of pedestrian accommodations coming online in other ways.
Right.
And 2, because in the more urbanized areas, right-of-way is such a greater challenge. It's not just whether or not you have to acquire right-of-way, it's whether or not the right-of-way that you're acquiring is impacting actual buildings, actual houses, people actually having to move is a much bigger right-of-way issue than, even though you're impacting right-of-way, it's a cornfield. The just overall scope of what that means is different. So we focused on segment 3 going into Suffolk. And when we did that, we kind of discovered that Suffolk is totally on board with partnering with us, but it's not a priority for them to pursue independently. We sent the information over to the TPO. They're very excited about the conceptualization that we've done. We have a conceptual layout. We looked at a couple of alternatives. We've looked at utility relocations. We've got estimates for that 3rd segment, but they don't have any funding. So they are continuing to look at the trail as an entire piece, not in actual construction segments. So I think it's going to help to keep that in front of people. People understand it, people are excited about it, but they're still seeing it as a whole. This trail is not moved into the bite-sized pieces of actual construction like some of the others have.
Any other discussion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the last item that we have on the agenda tonight is one, if you recall, earlier this summer, representatives from SIPSA, Southeastern Public Service Authority, came and briefed you on some of the things that they're looking at moving forward with relative to waste disposal within the region. And so a part of that conversation revolves around the overall use and support agreement that the member localities have with SIPSA. So what is before you is an amendment to that agreement that would essentially do 3 things. First thing is, it lays out a definition for recyclable waste. The second item is it provides that in order for the agreement to be extended, because that's literally what they're trying to do, is to extend the use and services agreement 75% of the board, meaning 75% of the member localities have to agree to do so. And then lastly, if there is approval between all of the member localities to do that, then the agreement would become effective and the term would last through June 30 of 2052. So essentially, what they're trying to do is to ensure that SIPSA remains not just a viable, but an effective means of waste disposal for the foreseeable future. Now, this is one part of what they're doing. The other part has to do with some other agreements that will need to be addressed at a later date, which would extend the life of the landfill and create further opportunities for us to have some comfort that our waste is being disposed of appropriately for the next several decades. So again, that's what's before you in terms of literally right now, just an amendment that would extend the life of the use and services agreement, or use and support agreement, I'm sorry. So this in and of itself there's not a whole lot of impact to doing what we're doing tonight. The safeguard or the safety valve is the other parts, if that's not agreed to by 75% of the member localities, all of this becomes null and void because there's nothing to extend the agreement for. So I certainly recommend approval of the amendments. I don't know if you are prepared to or desiring to act on that tonight. SIPSA will vote on this. I'm on that board. We'll vote on this on September 24th. So you could take this up at your regular meeting, but what I would request is that you all would authorize execution of the amendment to the use and support agreement.
And this is follow-up to their previous presentation to us.
Yes, sir.
And I guess I would defer to Bobby in the sense of we don't typically vote on some things, but we do occasionally.
You can, but this is not one such that I would take it to your regular meeting.
Yeah, there's no.
And just
We got
put
time.
it somewhere on that agenda because there's no time crunch, so.
Okay.
I
We
guess,
typically use it when there's a deadline that we would miss otherwise.
this discussion tonight was more to get FYI and maybe a consensus at best.
Correct.
Well, that, and I didn't want to bring this to you with less than a week
Right.
to make a decision. I didn't want you all to feel like you were backed into a corner and had to make a decision right away. Now, granted, we're still in a relatively short time span, but you do have the luxury of waiting till the regular meeting in
Nice thing is
September.
that this came on the heels of the presentation we had not too long ago.
Correct.
And, over the course of the years watching, I mean, even talks about it in here in the agreement. But some of the challenges that we have as a region, I can't imagine if we were taking it on, number one, by ourselves, or with less horsepower from smaller jurisdictions that we would have an opportunity to partner with. I mean, I do worry about cost, but I think that cost is gonna exist, whether it's litigating with other partners because you decide to go your own way. I think in my opinion, we're better off sticking with the collaboration and the efforts we've had with this region. I think it's been very successful. So, just my 2%.
Other comments? Well, I do think we should move it to
Yeah,
a regular
I'm
meeting.
more than glad to do that, but I
And,
want to just make sure you were aware of that.
If there's any value in having them come and just summarize something related to this.
I
I
think
think we've
it's,
covered it, but.
I think that we can cover it without them having to come. It is the definition of recyclable waste is only being amended to what all 8 member jurisdictions have agreed
Yeah.
and have been acting on for years just to make it consistent. And as Don said, and I've had numerous conversations with SIPS's attorney, and I think all the jurisdictions have stuck their finger in this agreement at some point to come to what I think, all agree is the appropriate language.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Don.
That's all we have, sir.
I have one thing I saw one of the presentations from Jamie. The Ragged Island project that's underway, have we been briefed at all on what they're doing down there? I mean, we have a general idea, I think you can read up on social media to some degree, but the restoration, beach restoration and all that at Ragged Island?
I don't know that we've had any quote-unquote briefings on that, but we can.
Can we just reach
Yeah,
out?
if you
Because,
want, we can.
you know, if we're talking about trails, we're talking about access to that Ragged Island, what it's been in the past since I've lived down there is at times not exactly desirable maybe, but it seems like the enhancements that they're doing there now, from what I've seen, I'm looking forward to it opening back up. But I don't know, because if y'all haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I've
on the
seen a
area.
few things on that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the erosion control and the barriers that they're putting in place for restoration and slow down the erosion.
Did you get something on that?
No, I was at a meeting the other day up in the northern part of our county, and they had come in and they were talking about it. And they had a presentation.
Or from the state?
Yes.
I don't know why they wouldn't do it for the Board of Supervisors. It's nice.
I didn't know about it until I got there. So,
If you could just,
Yeah, we can.
I mean,
certainly hear.
give us an
Yeah,
idea
I'm
what's going on.
curious, yeah.
And it's curious what kind of investment at a state or federal level all of us are making on
I'd
that.
like to know if we can count any of those acres in our parkland acreage.
That's right.
I have a couple questions, if
yes,
you don't mind,
please.
Chairman. Mainly for Mr. Robertson. So, we completed the CIP presentations from the departments this evening, correct? And
Yes,
so then the
correct.
schools are gonna come,
Schools will be here at your regular, well, I think they're waiting to get everything wrapped up with their study, but based on our previous conversation, I tentatively have them on the agenda for for your regular meeting on the 18th.
on the 18th. And then have we scheduled our special, like, call joint meeting with the school board?
Not yet, don't have a date. I think I sent something to you all a while back asking for feedback. Now, that said, we've been asking for a lot of dates for you all in the
And every
last
time
few
turn
weeks.
around.
Yeah, I don't recall that one. The only one I recall
but-
is the strategic planning meeting. And when did that get settled?
October 7th seems to be now,
Mhm.
again, I was gonna grab everybody before you got out the door, but October 7th seems to be the date that everybody gravitated toward.
That was good with me.
And we will have that on your regular meeting agenda as well, because you'll have to actually set that meeting.
That'll be all day.
Yes, 9 to 4 is kind of what we've looked at as a time frame, but yeah, all day.
No lunch break.
Yeah, that'd be
We'll
great.
bring in a couple of crackers. And,
I know that the food budget's been an issue.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that offline.
Take a
Where did
collection.
you say we're gonna have it?
That right now is scheduled to be at the school central office,
Oh, right.
which is adjacent to Hardy Elementary. They have a very nice,
It is nice.
room that we can use. I think you'll be pleased with that location.
And then the new assistant administrator, when does that person come? And are we doing any kind of welcome reception or anything?
September 16, and we're getting his office cleaned up for him, so he doesn't have to climb over piles of paperwork that I left. But no, he is excited about coming on board. I talked to him last week on the phone, and we'll probably be talking some later this week. I'm sorry, early next week, but he's due to come in on the 16th.
So again, do we have any kind of welcome reception or?
We do not. Welcome reception will be, here's your desk, let's get to work.
Come to the meeting on the 18th?
He'll be here on the 18th.
The girls and I have planned on bringing in some.
Look, we'll take him to, I mean, I'm being facetious.
Oh, I just didn't know if we'd be invited. I mean, just to get them to know.
Oh, I don't know if we'll have that kind of party.
Packing abs, packing abs in a coat. A tight budget around here.
Real tight. We gotta talk about that. It's getting tighter all the time. But I mean, no, we'll certainly do something internally for him.
Well, if he starts on the 16th, maybe he can come to our executive session on the 18th.
Oh, he'll be here for the whole meeting.
Right.
I don't know why you'd have him in a
Like eat
closed
with
meeting.
us or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but he'll definitely be here for the meeting.
Any other questions, things you want to mention? No. Okay, meeting adjourned.